Stick with me here. Luke looks over the landscape, pointing out to the group that this place already has fields, workshops, and even houses ready for them. Staring at the massive open land, he happily shouts they can build as much as they desire. It is all about quick growth, especially since Luke knows the surface getting completely wiped out is inevitable. So, he firmly stands his ground, loudly declaring he will protect the precious people he loves with absolutely everything he has in his power. Looking totally determined, he vows that in this specific spot, he will create a wonderful safe haven where everyone can just live in absolute peace. He has a massive plan for this new village, where happy folks are already starting to live their absolute best lives right now. Luke confidently promises to build this entire place using his own 2 hands. Then we see a normal 2-story house standing tall under the bright sun. Luke's dad excitedly calls out, saying his latest game project is just completely amazing. The kid quietly listens as his dad hypes up the awesome world building, the wild story roots, and all the epic endings he personally created. Turns out, his dad was an awesome game developer who simply could never stop talking once he got invested in a project. Meanwhile, his sweet mom was the quiet type, just sitting there with a gentle smile, while they all happily hung out together. Looking back, Luke realized just how deeply he truly loved both of his parents. But everything tragically fell apart his sophomore year of high school, when he got a devastating phone call that entirely changed his life. Luke ends up at the hospital, standing silently while looking at the 2 covered figures of his parents. This leads to a heartbreaking funeral where everyone sadly says goodbye to the portrait couple. Now watch this downward spiral. Losing his family shattered Luke, making him shut himself away from the entire world for years, just living in a messy room full of trash. Luke deeply reflects on how he almost lost his entire will to keep going. But the one thing that finally filled his empty heart was an epic game called Dragonia Chronicle 2, precious, treasured memento left by his loving parents. This game totally saved him, helping him recover and finally get his acts together. He threw himself into programming, studying like absolute crazy until he finally landed a fantastic job at a massive game company. Luke desperately wanted to honor his parents' incredible legacy by creating something truly amazing. And that was his hopeful plan for the future, at least until his shocked coworkers suddenly start screaming his name because something is seriously wrong. A panicked guy in the office frantically yells for an ambulance while everyone else completely freaks out. All because Luke had been pulling extreme all-nighters for 4 days straight, and his exhausted body crashed. Luke slowly fades away, whispering goodbye to his beloved mom and dad while apologizing for his story ending like this. He just cannot keep going. Everything goes pitch dark, but trust me, it gets wilder. The scene suddenly shifts to a huge mansion sitting in a massive, heavy rainstorm. 2 maids stand outside in the freezing, drenching rain, looking down at a tiny bundle on the ground, completely wondering what to do. One anxious woman mentions the local orphanage is already totally packed full, so they are in a tough spot. But the other maid says they cannot just abandon the poor kid out there, and they both bravely agree they have to step up. Right there on the freezing ground is a tiny, helpless baby, crying his eyes out in the harsh storm. Fast forward 26 years. That kid has fully grown into a man named Nino, who is just starting to wake up in a quiet, sunlit village, where a cheerful voice calls for him to finally get out of bed. Nino lazily groans, begging for 5 more minutes, while an energetic girl with cute fox ears waits for him to quit slacking. But she is absolutely not taking no for an answer. She screams at Nino to lift his head, making sure he hears her loud and clear by literally tossing him right out of bed. He hits the floor hard. He groans from the rough landing, looking up and asking why she cannot just wake him up like a normal person for once, instead of always causing such a huge dramatic scene. She just leans over with a grin, teasing him about being late. The little kid next to her joins the fun until an annoyed Nino finally snaps, telling them both he totally gets it, so they can stop the endless nagging right now. But the loud noise never stops, because Ali suddenly walks in carrying a massive spread of food, joyfully announcing that breakfast is ready. Ali and the kids start cheerfully cheering for him to eat, leaving Nino staring at the giant pile of meat and fish, completely mind blown by the absurd size of this meal. Nino tells Ali he seriously always makes way too much food, but Ali just laughs, wrapping an arm around him, saying he has to eat this much or he will end up completely collapsing. Nino jokes he will actually collapse from overeating, warmly realizing this crazy loud life is his new everyday reality. It's been 26 years since Nino passed away and got reborn into this brand new fantasy world. It is nothing like Japan, which is super obvious since completely different magical races are walking around everywhere. As he gets ready to leave, Annie starts mothering him, asking if he has his magic stone and sternly telling him to stay safe from any dangerous bandits. But Nino just confidently laughs it off, reminding her he is not some little kid anymore. He walks down the path, waving as the crew yells safe travels. Honestly, we are in for one amazing adventure with him. Stick with me here. As he looks back, he remembers how he, Annie, and Ollie all grew up in that exact same orphanage together. They spent years working insanely hard, always supporting each other to survive. So at this point, they are not just friends. They are true family. Still, watching him walk away, Annie just sighs heavily, honestly wondering if he is really going to be okay out there. Ollie tries staying super positive, watching Nino leave. He reminds Annie that the guy always works incredibly hard for them, so there is truly zero reason to worry. But Annie is totally unconvinced, hearing he has been acting strange at the tavern lately. Ollie gets a little serious, totally sure that Nino definitely has his own reasons. He just hopes things do not go terribly wrong. Meanwhile, the scene completely shifts over to that massive brick building acting as the Royal Alchemy Workshop. Right as Nino walks directly through the main door, his supervisor pops up, grinning wildly. He says he was waiting for him, immediately piling on crazy praise, literally calling Nino the absolute ultimate treasure of their entire busy workshop. Nino just sweats, totally groaning at this guy's overwhelming energy. He immediately gets a genuinely awful feeling about this. Now pay attention. The supervisor suddenly drops a massive task list. He actually tells Nino to finish every single impossible thing in one single day. He dumps a ridiculous pile of messy papers and supplies onto the desk, leaving poor Nino completely scrambling to even ask for a breather. Nino rubs his head, massively stressed. He tells the boss, "This is too much," while some other coworker just stands back there openly laughing at him. Nino glances over, annoyed, asking Arnold what his deal is. But the guy just flashes this completely smug look and says it is nothing. Except he is clearly thinking about how incredibly bad it must suck for Nino to be forever stuck. As a lowly handyman, Arnold pushes it, mocking how Nino wastes every single day doing these painfully boring, totally tiny little tasks. Then he suddenly shows off bright glowing crystals, loudly asking Nino if he would rather be like him. He pulls off an incredibly flashy transmutation, creating a huge glowing potion bottle. He bets Nino desperately wishes he possessed those exact magical skills. The other workers in the shop see this and start totally losing it, claiming they expected nothing less from a genius like Arnold. They call him the absolute top-term performer for creating that advanced magic circle so insanely fast. Nino simply shuts his eyes, calmly telling the guy he is not interested. Inside, he admits he probably could not do that even if he tried. Arnold just loudly scoffs, walking away, claiming it makes perfect sense since common types like Nino just lack talent. This leaves Nino standing there, thinking about what a massive loudmouth that guy really is, especially for being this early in the actual morning. Nino glances across his messy desk materials, remembering that right now, his actual job is working as a transmutation artisan inside this massive, highly respected royal workshop. He explains that artisan work means taking raw natural materials, then using charged magic stones to transform them into basically anything the kingdom could ever need. You might think that sounds like a dream job, but it actually requires absolutely insane magic control. Because of this reality, it is a brutally tough profession to enter, especially since normal humans are just seen as a totally common, weaker race. Plus, they completely lack the sacred dragon blessing that other fancy races use for high-tier magic. But get this. Nino can actually use magic stones in far more brilliant, creative ways. But for now, he is literally just a handyman, stuck doing endless prep work and basic cleaning. Nino quietly smiles, deeply believing that zero status stuff actually matters here. Honestly, he is perfectly fine just being the simple workshop handyman every day. As long as he protects his precious, peaceful life, he is ready for whatever comes. Plus, he has a very specific, secret goal he still absolutely needs to achieve. While sitting there, lost in thought, a voice suddenly calls his name. It is Master Balbanes. The older guy stands there adjusting his monocle, quickly asking Nino if he has a spare minute to chat. Nino looks up, genuinely shocked, seeing the big boss himself standing right there. They slowly walk toward the main office. Nino nervously follows through the door as Balbanes waits quietly inside. Balbanes tells him to come on inside, and Nino politely excuses his sudden intrusion as he steps right in. He honestly cannot help but wonder what this crazy surprise meeting means, especially because the master is looking way more intensely serious than he normally ever does. It makes the whole room feel insanely tense. Nino immediately starts getting a genuinely bad feeling. He totally knows. Getting called into the office during work hours usually means some completely awful news is coming. Nino goes totally quiet, figuring there is only one reason for this. Then, Master Balbane stares out the window, seriously asking Nino if it is true he has been working here for 10 whole years. Nino slowly says, yeah, but he is totally shocked. The old man even remembered his start date. Balbanes explains they actually started the exact same year. And trust me, you and I are going to love this next part. Jump in with me. Balbanes praises Nino as a vital team member, deeply appreciating his hard work. But our guy Nino plays it completely cool, insisting he owes the master for the epic training. Nino keeps brushing off the massive praise. He tells his master that honestly, he gets way too much credit for just being a simple handyman. Balbanes totally refuses to listen, claiming the workshop would completely fall apart without Nino's skills. The mood suddenly gets way heavier when the master admits this is an incredibly massive loss. Nino sits there, absolutely frozen. Master Balbanes drops a huge bombshell. The Royal Knights are making a move, and things are looking seriously bad. Balbanes looks him right in the eye. They're coming to arrest him. Staring out the window, the master reveals the official charge is incitement. Suddenly, everything just clicks into place for our guy Nino. He nods in understanding. His biggest secret has finally leaked out to the absolute worst people. Turning around, Balbanes mentions he has his own sneaky ways of finding things out through his own underground connections. He remembers hanging around different local taverns lately, quietly picking up on all the crazy whispers floating around town. Rumors are flying about someone spreading crazy stories about future disasters and the entire kingdom collapsing. Now watch closely. Balbanes looks Nino right in the eye, saying he might not understand why, but he still completely believes in him. He adds that he's absolutely sure Nino only pulled off this wild stunt out of pure necessity. Nino looks down, totally overwhelmed with guilt, and sincerely apologizes to the master for causing such a massive headache. Master Balbanes wraps the heavy chat up, sliding out a very special document. He literally planned an epic escape route. He points to a remote pioneer village on the southwestern border. An old buddy of his lives there, and guess what? He's been desperately hunting for a skilled transmutation artisan for ages. Balbanes asks Nino what he honestly thinks about the place, hinting this could be his ultimate chance to finally go independent and start fresh. Nino is absolutely speechless. The master did all of this just for him. Staring at the papers, he admits he honestly has zero clue how to even begin thanking him. Nino takes a much closer look at the map. The village layout is right there, and something about it makes him totally freeze up. Balbanes worries there's a problem, asking if he wants to back out. But Nino is super quick to promise that isn't the issue at all. Looking up with a massive smile, he says he'd be incredibly honored to accept. He bows deeply, pouring out pure gratitude for every single thing the master has done to help. Master Balbanes lets out a huge sigh of relief. It really looks like all his worrying was for nothing. Walking down the silent hallway, holding the map, Nino finally starts putting all the pieces together. Everything is perfectly connecting. He realizes that if his wild hunch is actually right, it means he still has a very real shot at completely changing things. So, he stops by the balcony, gazing out over the absolute massive royal capital. You feel that eerie vibe, right? The city seems peaceful, but that giant cracked moon above the castle is a haunting reminder of approaching chaos. Looking back now, Nino knows his reincarnation hasn't exactly been a walk in the park, but thanks to Ollie, Annie, and the master, he's actually managed to survive this crazy world. He genuinely loves this place, which makes his hidden knowledge so heavy. 3 years from today, this entire city is fated to turn to complete ashes. Walking through the packed streets, passing elves and ORCs, He carries the heavy burden of being the only person who knows what's coming next. Suddenly, everyone completely freezes. A mother and her kids gaze up as something incredible happens. An absolutely massive crack just appeared right across the glowing moon up in the night sky. Wild rumors spread like absolute crazy. Some scream it's a terrible omen of disaster, while others blame crazy moon monsters. The entire kingdom gets thrown into an absolute state of pure panic. The queen acts fast, consulting top scholars to drop an official statement. She boldly tells the frantic crowd this is actually a sign of amazing fortune. Conveniently, this perfectly matches the kingdom's 500th anniversary celebration, so the crowd totally cheers up. They name it the Moon Smile, which magically calms everyone down in an instant. But as Nino stares up, something feels way too familiar. Right then, a huge memory hits him. He realizes this entire world is exactly like a game he obsessed over in his past life. The game was called Dragonia Chronicle 2, or Drakoro 2 for short. It was a massive crafting RPG where you played as a transmutation artisan, which was basically an alchemist. From there, the main hero would start an absolutely massive adventure. Players traveled across wild regions gathering materials, crafting insane gear and items just to crush those special quests. And trust me, what made this masterpiece so legendary was the incredibly deep world building. Stick with me here. We're jumping right into a wild story, where out of all possible routes, the legendary creators of this game were actually Nino's parents. His dad was the main boss, calling the shots as director, while his mom brilliantly designed every single one of these amazing characters. But after both of them were suddenly gone forever, Nino was left completely alone, just feeling totally empty inside a room full of absolutely nothing. So he just started playing their game non-stop, trying his best to fill that massive hole inside. Every single line of dialogue he read felt just like hearing his dad's voice again, and staring at those amazing character designs always reminded him of his mom's bright smile, keeping their precious memories alive while he kept playing. Nino explains that the second his past life memories suddenly rushed back in, he knew exactly what was happening. But the absolute biggest issue was the crazy situation he was stuck in. He looks totally overwhelmed, desperately wondering why all this madness is happening to him. Staring up at the sky, he realizes that weird shape on the moon isn't actually a friendly moon smile. The reality is way darker than people think, because that giant crack is actually the legendary dragon of destruction, and it is finally starting to open its terrifying eye at the world. The entire world was already on a massive downward spiral, heading straight toward total disaster, exactly like the plot of the game he always played. Now pay attention here. Everything was heading for the bad ending route. Nino knows his only proof of this incoming apocalypse is a video game, which definitely sounds absolutely crazy, like nobody would ever actually believe him. But even though he is literally just a regular nobody, he starts thinking super hard about stopping the end of the world. He absolutely refuses to just sit back and watch. He finally comes up with a clever plan, deciding his best move is hitting the local taverns to start spreading wild rumors about the future. He remembers perfectly that things in the game only got worse as time passed. So, he figures if he keeps predicting these huge disasters before they happen, people might actually catch on. Nino fully believes that if his warnings started coming true, people would finally start believing him, and the word would spread so far that the kingdom itself would eventually have to step in and handle the situation. That was his entire master plan from the start, because then he would never carry this burden by himself. But the huge problem is everything completely fell apart at the very first stage, leaving him back at the workshop, staring blankly at the shelves, wondering exactly where he failed, when suddenly Arnold butts in with this incredibly smug look, asking Mr. Ordinary what that weird conversation he had earlier was even about. Nino simply brushes him off, saying it was just some completely trivial stuff, and strongly telling him not to worry about it. But then he suddenly realizes something is completely wrong, shouting for Arnold to wait. Arnold totally ignores him and just checks the task list, reading through stuff about white root flowers and safely removing poison glands from larvae. He just heavily sighs, calling it the exact same boring work, telling Nino to leave him alone. He just walks off with an annoying smirk, saying too bad. We both felt that one, right? Arnold leans in with a creepy grin, mentioning he was totally sure Nino got ratted out for those tavern rumors, making Nino's eyes go wide. It was this absolute jerk. It was him all along. So Nino tightly clenches his fist, confirming to himself that Arnold is definitely the exact guy who snitched. And yet, Arnold just dramatically stands there with his arms out, putting on a show. He calls Nino Mr. Ordinary, pretending he fully understands why he is so fed up with everything. But then, he quickly tells Nino that playing around with childish rumors is going too far. Nino just sits there in pure silence while Arnold studies his face, happily guessing he is probably getting transferred to some remote middle-of-nowhere location. And he proudly adds that the workshop master is actually being incredibly soft on him by not doing something way worse. Arnold totally acts like he will miss him, generously offering to help out with his transmutations as a little goodbye gift. But there is a catch. He will only do it if Nino completely swallows his pride and begs, specifically telling him to proudly say, "Oh, please, Arnold-sama." He has this incredibly smug look on his face. Nino just watches him laugh, angrily, thinking about how this guy remains obsessed with petty power trips while everything is completely falling apart. Nino intensely glares, realizing just how many innocent people are going to suffer because of Arnold's incredibly dumb, short-sighted moves. But he quickly catches himself, deciding it is way better not to cause a massive scene inside the workshop while Arnold just stands around laughing. As he grips the transfer order, he realizes that in a very weird way, this huge mess actually gives him a little bit of hope. He looks totally determined, thinking this might actually be the perfect chance to finally test out that amazing secret technique he has been keeping. Meanwhile, Arnold keeps obnoxiously poking at him, heavily mocking Nino for being so slow and asking if he is actually getting anything done today. That is where we leave it. Nino stays completely silent. He just raises his hands, getting into the zone, while Arnold gets a really confused look, asking what that weird gesture even means. Nino completely ignores him. Stick with me here. Looking at the massive pile of work Arnold dumped on him, he figures there is absolutely zero reason to hold back anymore. So, he instantly starts pouring raw power into the crystal. Arnold completely loses his mind seeing this. He is totally stunned by the absolute god-tier magic control Nino is casually showing off. Arnold is freaking out, wondering where Nino hid this insane power. He literally cannot believe the guy is working hundreds of times faster. Arnold watches in pure shock as Nino completes one transmutation after another. Finished items are literally piling up at lightning speed. The wild energy Nino puts out gets way too intense, whipping up a massive power swirl inside the room. Arnold blocks his face from the wind. The magical force is just way too much for him to handle. He lets out a loud yell, getting blown backward and crashing right into some storage crates. Arnold groans in pain, sitting right in the middle of his messy disaster. Meanwhile, Nino simply takes a deep breath, looking perfectly calm. Nino checks over the work, deciding it is finally finished and totally enough. Then, he casually walks away like it was absolutely nothing. Watch closely. Arnold is still stuck on the floor, staring in total shock. He stammers, demanding to know how Nino pulled that off. Suddenly, Master Balbanes walks in and completely loses it, screaming at Arnold's mess. He points at the floor, freaking out over the massive pile of finished items. Arnold helplessly tries defending himself from the ground. He points straight at Nino, desperately trying to claim the handyman is actually responsible. Master Balbanes fiercely scolds him, saying blaming others for his own mistakes is pathetic. He forces Arnold to stay late and redo absolutely everything. Arnold loses his mind on the floor while Nino just casually waves goodbye. Master Balbanes stands there while Nino walks away without looking back, smirking quietly. He casually says he is heading out first, leaving Arnold completely furious. Shaking with pure rage, he makes frustrated noises after getting utterly humiliated. As Nino walks away from the building, Arnold screams out one final, desperate insult. Nino just keeps moving forward, letting out a quiet sigh. Thinking that whole drama ended in a super boring way, he just heads straight back home. The local kids spot him, happily yelling his name to announce his return. Ali and Annie meet him right at the door holding laundry. Ali looks genuinely surprised, mentioning that he came back way earlier than anyone expected. The big guy asks if he forgot something at work. Nino simply says no, standing there looking unusually serious. Ali and Annie stop everything to listen. Looking them in the eye, Nino says he has something important to share. The three sit down at the table to talk. We all felt that. Nino breaks the heavy news he is reassigned far away. Ali quickly asks if this trouble is all because of those sketchy tavern rumors. Nino looks down, deeply apologizing for causing such a mess. But Ali simply gives a warm smile, telling him not to sweat it because they will figure everything out together. Then the big guy mentions something totally mysterious. A suspicious woman with black ears has been lurking around, heavily watching their house since the sun came up. While the hooded woman stands outside, Nino seriously wonders if it is the night order. Ali is not completely sure, but he knows leaving through the front door is incredibly risky. Nino immediately stands up, telling everyone to pack up and meet in the underground storage. Nodding, Ali admits he really owes him big time for the help. Getting his heavy bags ready, Nino stands there for a second in his gear, quietly telling himself that should be absolutely everything. Looking back at his empty bed, he remembers all those loud, cheerful dinners they happily shared together in this exact room. Moving on, they gather in the cellar. Nino is completely shocked by a secret passage. Ali just laughs, asking if he seriously never knew about it. Staring down the dark hatch, Nino realizes this path leads right into the sewers. This means he might actually be able to get his old weapon back. Ali asks if he can handle a dangerous place like that. Nino confidently replies that as long as it is just monsters, he is perfectly fine. Ali is not surprised at all, cheerfully saying, that is exactly what he expected. Nino grabs his heavy bags, getting ready to head out. Suddenly, Annie rushes forward, pulling him into a super tight hug and holding on tightly. She tearfully apologizes for everything, but Nino just gently pats her head. He playfully calls her a dummy for saying sorry, reminding her that this was entirely his own choice. Annie looks up, smiling through her tears, and tells him to be proud and give everything his all. Nino looks back with a determined face, promising he absolutely will. Just before leaving, Ali stops him to ask if he has eaten lunch yet. He hands him a small food bag, telling him to take it along for the long trip. So that is where we leave it. Nino shares one last emotional hug, thanking them for absolutely everything before boarding a wagon and riding away from the city. Stick with me here. He waves goodbye, promising to return once everything finally calms down. Sitting in the back, he opens Ali's food basket, completely shocked to find a huge pile of coins hidden away inside. Counting it out, he realizes they gave him a whole month's earnings. He leans over, completely stunned by their amazing kindness. He just cannot believe they would be so incredibly selfless. Sitting there all alone in the wagon, he gets pretty emotional. Having zero family in this world, he knows his life would be completely different if he never met Ali and Master Balbanas. Taking a bite of Ali's sandwich, it truly hits him just how much these amazing people mean to him. It tastes so incredibly good that tears just keep falling while he eats. Finally pulling himself together, he looks out at the horizon. Things have changed, but his wild journey is far from over. Checking his map, he makes a crazy discovery. This remote village is an exact match for the starting town in the game Dracoru. Nino realizes his current level is absolutely perfect. Getting close to the village should instantly trigger a massive secret game event. He pictures the Dragon Orb Palace. Everyone knows it is the absolute hardest secret dungeon in Dracoru. 2. It is a massive hidden labyrinth packed with ancient ruins and wild overgrown roots, completely cut off from everything. If his old gaming memories are actually spot on, he knows that dungeon is totally loaded with rare crystals and epic legendary gear. Now, pay close attention here. That dungeon is his only chance to save this entire world. Thinking back to Ali, Annie, and the kids, he silently tells them to just hang on and wait for him. Looking ahead with total determination, he swears an absolute vow. He will find a way to save every single one of them. The wagon rolls down the dirt road while the driver manages the horses. Nino remembers being completely lost after leaving home, till he luckily met Hans, a traveling merchant he actually recognizes from the game. Hans was super hyped to meet a transmutation artisan. He happily told Nino to hop in for a free ride to the village. A mysterious woman hiding her face in the back thinks she finally has one less thing to worry about. Or so she hopes. But something feels totally off. She starts wondering if the Royal Knights might actually be watching them. Up front, Hans looks back and asks Nino about their new passenger. He admits he honestly does not know a single thing about her. He just felt completely awful turning her away and leaving her behind, especially because of her delicate condition. Nino glances at her large pregnant belly and tells Hans he totally gets what he means. Nino quickly checks their surroundings. He feels super relieved that nobody is chasing him, and luckily, Hans has not noticed anything strange going on at all. Sitting there quietly, he pulls up a massive command menu floating right in thin air. Only he can see this crazy interface. Touching the glowing screen, he notices the scales on the menu have leveled out just a tiny bit. Let that sink in for a second. Ever since those gaming memories flooded back, his entire life has completely changed. Nino stares at the glowing screen that has been floating in his vision this entire time. This interface is the ultimate proof he is inside the game. Dracoru. And those glowing dragon scales in the center are the most important part. The more they tilt, the closer the world gets to total collapse. If that balance fully breaks, everything will fall apart in an instant. Nino checks the display. Before he spread those tavern rumors, those scales were literally teetering right on the edge of a complete apocalypse. He realizes his smart choices are the only thing keeping this world safe right now. He definitely has to stay incredibly sharp. He decides to double-check his other commands, just in case he missed something useful. He pulls up the transmutation screen. This system lets him register recipes for anything he has ever built. Once a recipe is saved, he can instantly turn raw materials into finished items. That is how he survived all the crazy work Arnold dumped on him before. Done with that, Nino checks the next menu tab to see what else he can do. He opens his item and map screens to check his inventory and track exactly where he is. Scrolling through, he sees he can store tons of weapons in a pocket dimension, but the map stays blank until he explores the area. There is also a party screen to manage team stats, but the list is totally empty since he is flying solo right now. You and I know the truth. He will definitely need strong allies to survive this world. Jump in with me. Someone right beside him suddenly speaks up. The mysterious hooded woman riding with them asks how much longer this trip will actually take. Hans looks back from the front of the carriage, shouting that they still have about 3 hours left. Hans asks if everything is okay back there. The woman calmly replies that her baby is actually about to be born, and Nino completely loses his mind. He honestly cannot believe his ears, frantically asking if she is actually holding up okay right now. She sweetly thanks him for caring, but Hans wastes zero time, loudly yelling that he is stopping the carriage right away. Nino instantly jumps into action. He grabs a cloth, asking if he needs to use his heating skills to prep some hot water. Nino starts totally panicking, wildly grabbing his magic crystals and more cloth. He promises to use his powers to purify things for disinfecting, but honestly, he is so stressed out, he cannot even remember what the very next step is. The woman watches him wildly, scrambling around, and gently asks if he can help her out momentarily. Without skipping a single beat, Nino tells her to just let him know exactly what she needs. Smiling warmly, she thanks him, looking way too calm and relaxed for someone currently in labor. Pulling her hood back, she says she is ready to show him what is happening, but as her face is revealed, Nino suddenly gets a really strange feeling. Something about this whole situation feels completely wrong. He tries processing it, realizing that for a woman about to give birth, she is entirely missing that desperate, panicked tension you would normally expect. Watch closely. It is too quiet. Then he sees the truth. She is not pregnant at all. Instead, she is holding a massive, glowing egg covered in really strange patterns. Nino totally loses his cool. Blushing hard, he mentally yells at himself because he was so blinded by the medical emergency panic that he never even looked at her face properly. But now that he actually looks, he immediately spots the pointed ears, long tail, and dark skin. Everything finally clicks into place. Staring right at her, he suddenly realizes this girl is actually a member of the legendary demon race. Hans glances over and witnesses the absolute chaos too. Nino points at her in pure shock, shouting that the biggest problem here is her holding a massive egg. Right now, both Nino and Hans are just completely losing their minds. Nino screams that he has never seen an egg this massive, while Hans absolutely cannot believe they have been transporting a literal monster egg everywhere. Nino suddenly gets incredibly serious, fully realizing exactly how incredibly dangerous this whole situation really is. He runs through how bad this could get and what a monster hatching right here would mean for everyone. In this world, monsters are not simply everywhere. They normally stick to high energy zones called magic energy pools, spending their time fiercely hunting and attacking whatever moves. The real problem is that these creatures are unbelievably aggressive. The exact second they sense anyone holding magic energy, they instantly go on the offensive, attacking without a single ounce of mercy. You and I both know it. Nino realizes they face a nightmare. If a wildly violent monster hatches inside this small carriage, it will be an absolute disaster for everyone involved. Looking at the demon girl, he brings up how she begged for his help earlier. Though he remains completely confused, he asks what he is even supposed to do with an egg. Without wasting a single second, the girl strictly tells him that he needs to touch its shell. She desperately asks him to pour his magic directly into the child inside. Looking incredibly worried, she explains that her own magic simply is not cutting it right now. Apparently, her power alone just is not enough to maintain stability. Nino decides to just go for it, boldly declaring he will help. Stating he is ready to pour his magic in, he slowly steps toward the giant, glowing egg. The demon girl warns him to pour in absolutely every single drop of power he possesses. Nino prepares to risk everything to save this creature before time runs out. Suddenly, he remembers one crucial, game-changing detail about how this magic actually works. He realizes if he floods the shell with human magic, the monster inside should completely lose its wild aggression, naturally calming down long before it even hatches out. Narrowing his eyes, he commands himself to focus, fully knowing that absolutely everything is riding on him getting this perfect. Pressing his hands against the egg, he immediately notices this feels nothing like a standard everyday transmutations. He is dealing with a completely different power here, meaning there is absolutely zero room for error. Keeping his head down while Hans and the demon girl watch closely, he tells himself that failing right now is simply not an option for any of them. Suddenly, a massive amount of radiant magic starts exploding out of him. He is totally stunned by the sheer volume of power and how brilliant. Colors start shifting and swirling all around the carriage. The girl counts the shades 2, 3 then completely loses it seeing 6 unique colors. She gasps, saying she has never seen magic waves look this unbelievably beautiful. The whole carriage is glowing bright, and as light fills the air, she whispers that his magic looks exactly like a vivid rainbow stretched across the wooden floor. Wild, right? She just stares up in pure disbelief. Let's dive in. She is staring, completely wondering who this guy is and where this insane power originates. Right as his energy maxes out, she absolutely panics and tells him to wait. Nino glances over, completely confused about what is wrong. Then, the egg suddenly shatters right in front of them, catching both of them totally off guard as it cracks. The egg finally bursts open, and Nino falls backward when a tiny creature with a snake tail lunges right at him. Wait, it is actually 2 little girls. They instantly pin him down, and the cat-eared one happily calls him her new master. Nino is absolutely stunned that these little creatures can talk. He totally freaks out, yelling at them to back off, but they just keep snuggling him while he desperately begs them not to eat him. The demon girl just watches and grins, realizing they are twins, and that is why the egg was so heavy. But Nino screams that weight is their absolute smallest problem right now. Once everything finally calms down, Nino asks Hans if these kids are actually monsters. Hans points out that hatching from an egg obviously means they are not human. Nino questions if monsters should even talk. Hans mentions that while some top-tier races understand us, these 2 are absolutely something else entirely, since they do not resemble angels or demons at all. Honestly, the 2 of them look super happy and harmless. Nino realizes they are not hostile, which is a massive relief for everyone. Now watch this closely. The demon girl eyes the 2 new kids, wondering what they actually are. Nino asks why they are clinging to him, but she simply points out he is their master. She explains it is because his magical power is way higher than what she originally poured inside. Nino cannot believe it is actually possible for a master to switch just because of a magic gap. He quickly apologizes to her, since these were supposed to be the kids she spent so long raising, but she tells him not to sweat it, especially since she was the one who asked for his help anyway. She is still thinking about that huge magic burst from earlier, asking if he is some top-tier mage or a total pro at transmutation. It does not really matter to her which one it is. She is just incredibly impressed by his amazing skills. Nino tries acting super humble and says he is nothing special, so she asks if he is heading toward the capital for work. Hearing about the royal capital instantly makes him break a serious sweat, and he nervously repeats the name under his breath. The demon girl realizes they have actually been heading the wrong way, and the capital is in the opposite direction, making Nino totally lose his cool. The carriage just keeps rolling along through those empty fields while Nino absolutely stammers in shock about them being lost. She just smiles, saying she gets it now, and since there is no helping it, she will not worry. Nino cannot believe she is being this incredibly casual. Nino wonders if she is actually okay in the head, but she just points out she cannot exactly hop off the ride right here. She looks at him, saying that even though she took the absolute wrong path, it all worked out perfectly because they ended up meeting. It really feels like fate to her. So, she looks at him with this incredibly sweet expression and calls him her dear. Nino repeats the words fate and meeting to himself, totally wondering what she is on about before a sudden thought hits him. You and I saw this coming, right? Her calling him that, the terrible directions, and that entire crazy monster egg situation. He looks at her like he finally solved a massive puzzle and yells out that he knew it. The absolute final proof is right there in front of him. Because she has officially been added to his party list, Nino looks at Paula, realizing why he did not recognize her initially. In the game, she was only 14, making him realize she is actually a main heroine candidate and a top-tier monster tamer. Who knows? That epic subjugation skill. The realization hits him so incredibly hard that he accidentally yells out her name, Paula, right in front of her. She blushes and acts all flattered. But then she gets curious, asking him how he actually knows what her name is. She keeps pressing him for an answer, standing there waiting to hear exactly why he knows her name when they just met. Nino starts sweating and absolutely panics, realizing he totally screwed up by saying that out loud. So, he tries playing it off, telling her he just has a natural ability to see people's names. Surprisingly, she simply smiles and claps her hands, telling him she knew he had some incredible power. This leads Nino to just stare at her in absolute disbelief, wondering how she could possibly accept and excuse that bad. He silently admits to himself that it is technically not a lie, since he possesses his game powers, but it still feels weird. Paula looks at the two little kids in their adorable animal outfits and asks if their names are Yoru and Ku. The two little ones get super excited because they think he is calling them. So they start running over and tackle him into a massive hug. Nino is completely blindsided by this, silently wondering when they even became part of his party. And that is where we leave it. Paula smiles, praising those names, leaving Nino even more totally confused. Stick with me. It clicks. He remembers shouting those names earlier, realizing that is exactly when it happened. He pieces it all together. His shouted words just got shortened down into Yoru and Ku. Paula giggles warmly, asking if they are seriously going to settle on those cute little names for them. As the carriage rolls through the canyons, Nino warmly agrees. It works for him, as long as the little kids like it. Changing the subject, he mentions how incredibly risky it was to carry around a mysterious egg that might hatch dangerous monsters. Then he asks Paula a huge question. What was she actually planning to do in the royal capital? Paula cheerfully explains her uncle actually lives in the royal capital, so she was simply planning to pay him a visit. Apparently, he was the exact person who encouraged her to head out and begin this amazing solo journey. Nino nods along, figuring she just wanted to visit him and say thanks. But then, Paula casually mentions she actually brought the mysterious egg along as a travel companion when she left home. Turns out, that egg supposedly came from a legendary beast known as the embodiment of destruction, and it was kept under maximum security. But honestly, she felt she desperately needed a true adventure to finally break out of her shell and grow. She smiles brightly while petting the kids. Then, she casually admits she ended up just stealing the egg and taking it. Nino looks completely stunned, telling her that swiping it was definitely a really bold move to make. Now, pay close attention. Paula turns the question back around, warmly asking what exactly brought him out on this journey. Nino is caught totally off guard, realizing she wants the story now. Nino slowly starts explaining his goal, saying he just wants to save the entire world, but he quickly corrects himself, claiming he actually wants to save his family, leaving Paula completely stunned. Paula cannot believe he is aiming for something as massive as saving the world. Meanwhile, Nino panics, realizing he completely let that slip by accident. He awkwardly tries playing it off, thinking that if it is about family, he definitely just talked way too much. Meanwhile, Paula watches him, thinking back to her uncle Leocadio. She feels that incredible sense of fate about meeting Nino absolutely was not a mistake after all. Nino catches her staring and wonders if something is wrong. She just smiles sweetly, saying it is nothing, before suddenly deciding to make a big move. She catches him completely off guard, asking if she and the kids can tag along on his epic journey. While it is a super sudden offer, Nino thinks over his plan. He quickly realizes having an expert monster tamer would be a massive help. Nino asks Paula if she is truly okay giving up her solo journey. She smiles brightly, saying she is absolutely sure. She lets him know she has already fulfilled the main reason she started traveling in the first place. You and I see where this is going. Nino feels unsure since he barely knows her, but he remembers how incredibly reliable she was in the game. So, he figures, if she likes the big decision, then it should be totally fine for them to team up. Reaching out his hand, he tells Paula he is counting on her. She absolutely lights up, shaking his hand and brightly saying she is looking forward to working with him too. A bit later, Hans yells out that the village is finally in sight. Everyone looks outside as rustic windmills and cozy houses slowly come into full view. Nino stares at the town, murmuring that seeing the starting village feels incredibly nostalgic. Curious, Paula turns to him, warmly asking if he has actually visited this place before. As they approach it, they hear a blacksmith shouting at someone about an old staff, demanding they hand it over so he can easily forge them a much better one. An old man inside the tavern let slip he heard Elise took in a monster kid. Then, he quickly panics, catching himself and admitting it was supposed to be a secret. Meanwhile, the counter lady tells Nino he looks totally exhausted and needs a break. Nino just gives a gentle smile, agreeing that it was definitely a very long trip. But as he warmly looks at everyone, he starts thinking back to the awesome people he remembers from the game. Guys like Haimo, the blacksmith, Eugene, and even Ute. He fully takes in the lively tavern scene. Seeing so many familiar faces gathered and hanging out together, he cannot help but warmly say out loud that he really hopes to get the chance to meet them all again. Snapping back to the present, the carriage rolls through the village gates. Paula mentions this place must be incredibly special to him, and he completely agrees with a smile. But the vibe is completely off. The villagers are all slumped over in the dirt streets, looking completely miserable. Nino spots something that makes him completely freeze up. Right as he is panicking, Paula quickly calls him over toward the dark edge of the woods. The two stand there staring at a rocky trench. It turns out the entire river has completely and utterly dried up. The river is basically gone. Only dark, murky sludge remains in the cracked dirt, making it completely useless for absolutely anything. A man in a straw hat approaches the group, asking if he is talking to Nino. He mentions that Balbanes told him to expect their arrival. The man introduces himself as Dirk, the local village chief. Looking incredibly worn out, he politely asks if he can have a quick moment of their time. So what do we make of this? Sitting at the tavern, Nino realizes the village is in incredibly deep trouble, since they depend entirely on that river. Stick with me, Dirk explains this wild new situation. Everything was totally fine until early this year. Nino starts sweating as the mysterious puzzle pieces connect. This is seriously looking exactly like the awful bad ending game route. He suddenly remembers the story. The absolute first sign of the destructive dragon waking up always appeared right in the water. It always starts with polluted water and completely dried land, leading straight to a massive famine that takes everyone out. Inside the game, saving a village totally restored world balance. But ignoring the issue only made the massive destruction happen way faster. Seeing the current situation, Nino is completely sure saving this tiny village directly stops the whole wide world from totally falling apart. Nino stands right there looking incredibly stressed out. He knows things are bad and realizes he truly must step up and act soon. Someone mentions they talked a long time, confirming the chat began right upon arrival. Nino slowly closes his tired eyes as everything darkens. He starts feeling a mysterious warm sensation, completely unable to understand what is happening until his eyes open wide right in Paula's lap. She just giggles happily, asking if he finally decided to wake up again. He hits pure panic mode and apologizes like crazy, but Paula gently says to relax. He looks totally ready to collapse from sheer exhaustion. It clicks that he used her lap as a pillow, realizing he completely blacked out without even knowing it. But the harsh reality of the village crisis heavily weighs on him. Watch closely here. Things are way worse, and so many people are relying on him. He stares off, looking pretty down, quietly wondering how everyone else across this broken world survives through the absolute mess. A hot pot of food hits the table softly, yet asks if he rested well. She warmly tells him to eat barley porridge before heading out, ensuring he gets something in his empty stomach for the day. Nino looks at the woman right before him, quickly realizing she is Yut. She runs the local tavern, mentioning she heard a ton about him from her little brother, Hans. Turns out she knows all about their rough trip. Suddenly, a hand offers a plate, telling Nino to eat. Eugene stumbles over, looking totally drunk while balancing huge food piles. He is too wasted to remember what he holds. The beastman blacksmith angrily snaps at him to quit being drunk, telling the old guy to choose something. Someone attempts playing peacemaker while Nino warmly watches the familiar locals bickering like usual. He gives a smile, spotting his old friends Eugene and Haimo right amid the busy crowd. Haimo rushes over screaming sensei, holding out a massive pot of fresh farm beans. Another guy immediately jumps in, offering salted pork from his family farm. Aggressively insisting, Nino takes a huge bite. Yut watches the overly generous guys, questioning if they can even afford it. You and I would be totally stunned by this wild welcome too. So, Yut kindly speaks up, apologizing for all the crazy village noise. She explains they have never hosted a real transmutation artisan before. So absolutely, everyone is just getting their hopes super high right now. Dirk tells Nino to ignore the noise and relax, as the group sits for an epic feast. The packed tavern echoes with pure laughter. Looking around, Nino feels so relieved that the incredibly warm and friendly village vibe stayed exactly like he fondly remembered it. But seeing everyone so genuinely happy proves he absolutely cannot let things stay exactly this way. Because without fast action, this entire beautiful village will eventually face completely unavoidable disaster. He knows one specific crucial spot is needed to save them all, but he simply cannot remember how to track down that exact location. While he stays stuck inside his own head, calculating his next big move, Paula brightly smiles, mentioning how she would absolutely love staying to chat more with the entire town. Nino suddenly remembers a vital detail involving Hans and the village chief, letting out a sharp gasp as the ultimate answer finally clicks. He excitedly shouts he solved it. A confused Paula asks what is happening, while repeating they must speak with the chief. As Nino yells to follow him, they rush quickly across the loud tavern toward the chief. Nino flashes back to his hardcore Dracoru to gain knowledge. Remembering the essential location key stays hidden with the actual village leader. He calls out loudly to Dirk, who glances back as Nino turns completely serious. So what do we learn? He asks the chief the most important question ever. Finding the secret path toward the hidden dungeon is literally the only strategy left to save this whole village. Stick with me. We are deep in these vine-covered woods, and the group finally reaches this dark cave. Standing ready before an ancient stone structure, Nino tells everyone to stay on high alert, warning that scary monsters might ambush them at any second. Paula looks up, her eyes full of absolute trust, completely ready for whatever happens next. Nino reaches out to the cold stone wall, happily announcing they have finally made it right here. This hidden dungeon stands right in front of them, shining with giant crystals. And Paula honestly cannot believe how incredibly cool the place looks. She tells Nino the view is breathtaking, and he just nods while staring at the entrance. He realizes this is the legendary Dragon Orb Palace. He remembers, literally the absolute hardest hidden dungeon in the entire game. It is totally packed with flying monsters. Basically a massive labyrinth going down over 100 floors. Deep beneath the surface, terrifying creatures roam the halls. But the risk is worth it, since the place is loaded with rare materials. Nino looks out over the glowing ruins, completely knowing this massive dungeon is the only way to save the village. Paula looks at him sincerely, asking if he has a solid plan for this, and Nino says he is ready. Standing beside the village chief and Paula, he feels a huge wave of pure relief. Watch closely. He realizes the game logic holds up perfectly since this dungeon appeared exactly when it was supposed to. It was totally triggered by Dirk mentioning that weird hole in the village, giving Nino absolute confidence as they finally start. He tells Paula he has absolutely everything ready, so there should not be any trouble. But Mia is already getting super distracted by all the glowing crystals. She starts loudly cheering about how many sparkling stones are everywhere. And Nino just watches her, realizing she is the only actual problem he must worry about. Mia is just way too hyped, wildly pointing around at absolutely everything. She tells Nino and Paula to hurry up because she wants to go check out the other side, leaving poor Nino to desperately try and rein her in. He tells her not to get too carried away, reminding her they are basically here to investigate, which completely catches Mia entirely off guard. She admits she totally forgot, since she has never seen anything like this before, but then starts getting a bit nervous about the actual danger inside. She suddenly realizes that monsters might be terrifying, telling herself she cannot drop her guard, before instantly getting all her crazy energy right back. She loudly yells that even though they have no clue what awaits, they should carefully charge ahead. Mia happily cheers as they finally get moving, her arm raised high, leading the way. Even the little kid in the cat hoodie is insanely hyped up. Nino just stands there holding his head in his hands, looking completely exhausted while wondering how his life turned into such a chaotic mess. The scene jumps back a few hours to when they were still in the village, and someone brought up the genius idea of finding a local guide. I know what you are thinking. Who steps up? Mia eagerly jumps in, telling them she will absolutely handle it and wanted to chat anyway. She keeps cheerfully laughing with crazy high energy, making Nino admit that having her help is actually a truly massive relief. It turns out Mia is actually Yuta's spunky daughter, and back in the second game, she was totally known for running the local shop. She was basically the absolute star there, always cheerfully chatting with customers and keeping the vibe incredibly lively. Since she knows every inch of the village, they officially ask her to lead them, so she cheerfully starts heading right into the forest. As she joyfully skips ahead, Mia tells the group she is just so incredibly glad they decided to visit the village in the first place. She admits things have been so quiet at the shop lately that all she does is light the stove, so she is super happy to finally have something exciting to do. Nino finishes explaining how she is just stuck lighting the stove every day with nothing fun to do. Nino realizes the funny truth and asks if she was honestly just bored out of her mind, and she completely owns it. Meanwhile, Nino points out they should be reaching the spot any minute now. Suddenly, they hit a massive hole in the ground, and Mia loses it, asking if that was always there, confusing Paula since Mia is literally their guide. But Nino just smiles at how Mia honestly never changes. He admits to himself that this conversation feels super nostalgic, and he really wanted to keep talking, but playtime is over, so he pulls Mia aside to explain what is coming up next. Mia cannot believe there is an underground labyrinth right there, but Nino firmly says, this is where they part ways. He looks her right in the eye, seriously telling her it is way too dangerous for her to follow inside, so the group heads into the dark cave alone, leaving Mia standing safely back at the entrance. Nino catches Mia sneaking behind them and calls her out, reminding her he specifically said to stay back, but she just stands there looking super nervous. He seriously asks what is actually going on in her head. Mia looks down, getting super emotional as she fully admits she just could not bring herself to leave the group alone, staring at Nino with these massive, totally teary eyes. He just awkwardly gulps, completely thrown off by how incredibly serious she is acting. Then the mood shifts instantly as she excitedly pulls out a glowing rock, asking if it is rare material. Nino shuts her down instantly, but she just grabs another rock. Trust me, you and I will love this chaotic adventure. She eagerly shoves rocks in his face, desperate to help. You and I are jumping right into the chaos. Nino straight up tells her that her discoveries are total junk, leaving the poor girl absolutely shocked. Determined to prove herself, she shouts about exploring deeper inside the cave, sprinting away in a flash while Nino frantically tries to stop her, but she instantly trips over her own clumsy feet, taking a hard face plant before the adventure even starts. Nino yells at Mia to pull herself together before she completely loses it. Instead, he just stares at her, seriously wondering if bringing this girl along was actually a huge mistake. She just lays flat on the floor, remembering the original game where she was never a fighter and absolutely never followed the main character around. Since she is literally just an ordinary village girl, she definitely was never supposed to enter this dangerous dungeon. Nino shines his lantern down at her, realizing she is entirely out of her element in here. Gently, he reaches his hand out, asking if she can stand, and she happily takes it, thanking him. But suddenly, he freezes for a second, getting this super weird feeling that something is wrong. He almost brushes it off as pure imagination. But right then, a wild kid wearing a tiger suit spots them and screams out about intruders. The entire group halts in their tracks, as someone loudly yells about how gross the thing ahead is. Nino just lets out a heavy sigh, instantly recognizing this monster as a classic game world enemy. He casually stares at the slime, thinking about how these gooey things are normally just weak little starter enemies. So the whole team just stands around, fully expecting an incredibly easy win. Watch closely, because everyone gets completely stunned. The slime suddenly strikes with insane force, launching Yoru flying through the air as the actual floor shatters around her. Mia totally loses her mind, screaming that they are finished. Nino just stands there, sweating profusely, realizing this is absolutely no normal slime. It is from the final dungeon. Paula quickly rushes toward Yoru, who is barely standing. The slime start looking way more aggressive. Nino suddenly remembers that once these things go totally berserk, they will gang up and relentlessly attack until absolutely nothing is left behind, even dissolving you. Dozens more of these bouncy creatures start closing in from every single direction, making someone scream out that they are surrounded. The situation is looking incredibly bad. The frightened group wonders if they should retreat and find another path. But our boy Nino refuses to back down, fiercely telling the girls they are going to break straight through. Nino smartly remembers that blue slimes love fresh water and keep it pure. So, seeing them gathering around this fountain clearly means there is a purified water source very close by, something adventurers call legendary labyrinth water. Paula curiously asks if that is what the village mentioned, and Nino excitedly confirms finding it would be a huge deal. But Paula points out the major issue. They still have zero idea how to handle these incredibly aggressive monsters. Nino glances at his team, realizing that even with the combined strength of Paula, Yoru, and Ku, there is simply no way they can defeat these bouncy threats as they are right now. But we both know he won't quit. He urgently calls for a status check to find some hidden edge. Sadly, the very first thing he notices is how his own combat abilities are honestly pretty much completely useless. His stats display literally zero physical attack, despite being level 46. So he quickly swipes those sad numbers aside to check Paula's screen. He sees her status as a level 8 monster tamer, packing some genuinely decent magic stats to use. Nino keeps scanning their stats, realizing that while Paula's magic power is super high, she sadly lacks any real offensive spells. And to make matters worse, her physical strength is practically non-existent. Checking the little ones, he sadly sees that Yoru and Ku really lack any special combat abilities too. Yoru's status screen reveals she is just a tiny level 1 beast with almost zero health, and her only usable skill is eat. It is the exact same story for Ku, just another level 1 with zero combat utility. However, Nino is not panicking because he prepared. He actually put a brilliant plan into motion before they even stepped foot inside this dungeon. Looking around at his teammates, he confidently figures the timing is absolutely perfect for those secret magical effects to finally kick in. He watches their status numbers begin to fluctuate wildly, telling himself that the massive change is going to happen any second. But suddenly a glowing countdown appears, and Nino frantically screams for Paula to watch out as things turn critical. Paula's eyes go wide as the attack closes in. She is totally stuck in place, realizing there is absolutely no way to dodge. Amazingly, Paula swings her weapon with a huge speed burst, striking with way more power than anybody actually expected. Mia pops her head out, totally losing her mind, asking if Paula was always this crazy strong. Paula stares at her own hands in pure shock, wondering what happened. Meanwhile, Nino notes the perfect timing, explaining to her that it is all thanks to a hidden strengthening potion. Paula repeats the words, stunned that a simple drink did this. Trust me, you and I will definitely want to see what they do next. Let's dive right in. You and I are about to witness a totally crazy potion flashback. Back then, she had zero clue what was inside. Nino just smiled, told everyone to chug, and bam, the wild effects are finally kicking in. This ultra-rare buffing potion? It is a legendary item brewed from pure nature that absolutely skyrockets your attack and defense stats. Nino insists these are total lifesavers in the game, so he crafted a massive batch, making absolutely sure everyone drank one before charging in. With this epic buff, Nino thinks they finally have a winning chance. Meanwhile, Paula just watches, totally stunned. Nino confidently shouts that the battle should be easier now, and everyone charges the monsters. But reality hits hard. Nino spots the danger, realizing that even with epic buffs, they are totally cornered. Desperate, he rapidly swipes through his system menu, searching for any wild trick to flip the script. He freezes, right there, floating out of absolutely nowhere. Mia's personal status screen suddenly flashes into view. He literally cannot believe his eyes. Mia has an actual player interface, just like a main character. Moving like lightning, he summons his alchemy gear, grabbing every single material needed. He tosses in the black-winged goat tail. Next, man-headed flower nectar and purified water. The extraction circle glows with insane energy. He concentrates hard, blending every piece to see what epic item he gets. Paula stands there, completely mind-blown by this wild sight. Now, watch closely. You and I know that one tiny math error here means his magic control shatters, ruining absolutely everything right now. Sweat drips down Nino's face. He channels all his focus into the crystals, praying this works. Because honestly, this crazy alchemy trick is the only way they are saving the village from total ruin. A spark hits him. Seeing that player status screen, he realizes Mia is totally their secret weapon for absolute victory. The puzzle pieces finally connect. Remembering why things felt so weird earlier, he cheerfully tells the girls he just found a genius escape route. Mia just stares, completely lost. Nino grips her shoulder, smiling big, and says she is the one to save them. Mia absolutely panics, screaming that she has never fought a monster in her life. Honestly, Nino figures that is a totally normal reaction, but he refuses to doubt her. He truly believes Mia is the absolute key to winning. The catch? Once he starts pumping all his magic into this wild transmutation spell, their defensive barriers will drop hard, leaving the entire squad totally wide open. Paula quickly figures out his super risky plan. She nods firmly, completely understanding the massive stakes and why Nino is stressing over the timing. I know what you are thinking. Fighting without shields is wild. She closes her eyes, bracing for this incredibly risky disadvantage. She blasts into action, glaring fiercely. She shouts they just have to tank the hits, swinging her giant weapon to smash monsters away, asking Nino if this was his grand plan. Nino watches her charge forward, eyes totally wide. He yells Paula's name, stunned, realizing she just threw herself in front of a massive attack. Nino focuses hard on the alchemy, inspired by how hard his friends are fighting now. Just a few more seconds, the finished potion glows bright, clearly packed with some absolutely insane, godlike power. Breathing a massive sigh of relief, Nino shoves the finished bottle toward Mia, yelling at her to chug. Mia hesitates, looking unsure, but bravely goes for it while Nino watches her super closely. He knows for a fact this epic brew will give her an absolutely massive power-up. It will make her strong enough to easily smash through the monsters swarming all around. But wait, the second it touches her tongue, Mia violently spits it everywhere in pure, unadulterated shock. Nino freezes, totally baffled, while Mia loudly screams at him, demanding to know what garbage he brewed. Crying from the unbelievably foul taste, she loudly yells that it is repulsive and refuses to drink another drop. Boom! It finally clicks for him. That special ingredient he added for an instant power spike completely ruined the flavor profile. With Paula desperately fighting behind him, Nino realizes this special potion absolutely had to take effect immediately to save them. But this nasty side effect is a disaster. Nino enters full panic mode. Does he really have to brew a totally new batch? Mia just stands there, totally disgusted. Meanwhile, Paula shouts that they are almost finished. So where does this leave us? Nino looks on in pure horror as monsters block their escape. Trust me, things look incredibly bad here. Stick with me. He starts wondering if running away is their only real option. Looking at the village, one girl just cannot believe how little food they actually found. Meanwhile, the others complain that the terrible well water is completely ruining every single thing. They ask about the village. Well, but the latest news is terrible. Finding more water or food seems impossible at this rate, making the poor girl feel like they have finally hit an absolute dead end. Even after trying absolutely everything possible, it seems like everyone is just giving up. With their heads hanging low, they seriously wonder what to do now that things are this horribly bad. Nino looks directly at Mia. He knows he must pull himself together for the sake of everyone in the village. Mia decides she must be the one to change things. She grabs the strange potion bottle with both her hands and boldly starts chugging the whole thing at once. Nino cannot believe his eyes as he watches her go for it. Mia squeezes her eyes completely shut as she struggles to swallow the liquid. Nino totally freaks out, asking if she feels okay. He yells that she doesn't need to drink it all immediately, but she just keeps bravely pushing through the intense pain. Anyway, finally pulling the empty bottle away, she violently gasps for air. Liquid drips everywhere as she struggles to catch her breath. She starts coughing and groaning, looking absolutely exhausted from the effort. Nino watches her closely, super worried that something might be horribly wrong. He asks if her body feels all right, but she can barely even respond. Now watch this closely. Nino spots a major change. Looking completely surprised that the potion is actually working, he looks her right in the eyes, bringing up what they discussed right before the crazy transmutation started. Full of hope, he asks if she can actually do it. Mia just stands there looking totally stunned, barely able to find any words. Looking totally determined, Mia gives a firm nod, confirming she is completely ready. Seeing that fierce look in her eyes, Nino says he is totally counting on her. He breathes a sigh of relief, thinking they might actually survive this ordeal. Watching her massive magic blast completely clear the area, he feels seriously impressed. He realizes that in this brand new world, she is way more than a teammate. It finally clicks for him. Even though she seems like a physical fighter, Mia's true class is actually a mage, and an incredibly powerful one at that. Her glowing status window suddenly pops up. It shows she is level 1, but has a massive magic boost thanks to that crazy enhancement potion she drank. As the excited group heads up the stairs, Mia is absolutely buzzing with energy, shouting about how crazy that last move was. She simply cannot believe she actually pulled it off so perfectly. Nino happily praises Mia for doing such an amazing job. She gets totally hyped up, asking him if she was totally right about being completely awesome. Mia gets this extremely smug look on her face, wondering to herself if she might actually be a total genius. Nino just quietly watches her, thinking about how she gets way too carried away, exactly like that one character from the game. Suddenly curious, Mia asks Nino how he even knew she possessed magic power, since she really doesn't think she ever actually told him. Nino simply holds up their glowing lantern. You and I probably guessed this, right? He confirms that was literally all it took. He explains the lantern glows because of a special luminous stone inside, but it only reacts whenever someone with strong magic power is standing near it. He reminds her that touching it earlier made the bright light suddenly flare up, giving her away completely. He adds that once he could finally see her actual glowing status window, it became super obvious she was a mage. He noticed her fire element and remembered her mentioning that lighting the stove was part of her daily chores. Nino gives her a genuine smile and proudly thanks her, telling her she truly saved the whole group during that insane fight. Mia just giggles to herself, completely soaking up the praise while trying to act like it is no big deal. She starts loudly shouting about finally going on a real dungeon adventure. Nino tells her to settle down, before Paula mentions she is actually pretty curious about what lies ahead. The group bravely moves deeper into the ruins, until they run straight into a giant glowing blob blocking their path. Mia's jaw absolutely drops at its size. Nino can barely believe he is actually looking at a glowing monster that incredibly huge. He nervously asks if this is the floor boss, but Paula thinks it just looks like a normal enemy, only way bigger. She then points past it, noticing a glowing pool of rare labyrinth water sitting in the back. Nino quickly realizes that defeating this giant thing is the only way to get that water. But right as he plans his next move, Mia starts screaming as the creature suddenly shifts its shape. Nino quickly warns the group that this thing just got way more dangerous. The monster lets out a massive blast of raw energy that fills the entire hallway, slamming right into them. Nino violently coughs through the thick dust and smoke, quickly checking to make sure the girls are all right, and Paula groans that they are still in one piece. Nino glares at the massive creature. Trust me, you and I just know this giant slime is on a totally different level than anything they have ever faced before. Mia totally panics and shouts to Nino that no matter how many blasts she fires, this giant monster just refuses to fall. Her fire blasts are completely useless. Trust me, you and I are about to see Nino stop holding back and finally unleash his staff. He pulls a massive glowing weapon from thin air while Paula watches in pure shock. Mia totally loses her mind, asking where he was hiding such an enormous item. Then, Paula asks what it is, and Nino explains it is the Staff of Lightning. Summoning. He found this rare magic tool in the capital sewers, calling it his ultimate secret weapon for emergencies, since it blasts incredibly powerful lightning strikes. Mia stares at the huge staff, asking Nino if that is actually enough to win, but Nino looks intensely focused, telling her it won't be that easy. He explains they absolutely must finish this giant monster with just one single blast. This totally catches Mia completely off guard, and she nervously asks why they only get one chance. Nino calmly explains that the magical energy cost for this staff is huge. Once fired, it takes forever to recharge. He cannot risk using it unless they are 100% sure the enemy will fall. Watch closely now, because things are getting intense. As the huge slime towers above, they must step up and create a weak point. Nino starts wondering what they can even do, knowing this monster is just insanely tough. Right now, they honestly do not have any clear way to deal actual damage to this absolute beast. Paula locks onto the target, quickly asking if the plan is just creating a weak spot on it. This totally surprises Nino, who asks how she knew that, but she just tells him to leave the rest to her. She explains that if they handle the smaller slimes nearby, she can definitely pull this off. Nino pauses for a brief second before telling her to just give him the attack orders. Paula stands her ground, looking totally ready for an epic fight with her whip. Mia totally freaks out because she has absolutely no clue what those two are planning. Nino admits he is clueless too, but he fully trusts that Paula can actually make it happen. Suddenly, one of those slimes lunges forward right at Mia before anyone can even react. Nino completely loses it, yelling her name as the monster closes in. The massive impact sends Mia flying, while Nino gets knocked incredibly hard right into the dirt. Mia frantically yells out for Nino, looking completely panicked as she sees his injured state. Nino cannot help but think this situation is his fault, groaning heavily through the pain. He notices Mia looking worried and quickly tells her he is doing fine. He explains he survived by pouring all his reinforcement magic right into his iron defense skill. He apologizes to Mia because he lacks attack moves and can only support the group from the back lines. Mia tries taking the blame herself, saying the mistake was hers, but she realizes that if they just hold this position, they might actually win. She tells him that for now, they must fully trust Paula and just keep fighting. Mia keeps up the pressure, using magic to hold the line until she screams her fire is fading. Nino looks on, realizing she is completely out of magical energy. The battle reaches its breaking point as the huge monster starts showing signs of extreme weakness. I bet you did not expect this twist. Nino freezes, shocked as smaller monsters suddenly attack the big one. Mia gets super excited, asking if the monsters are actually fighting each other now. But Paula steps forward with her whip, telling Mia that is not happening at all. She introduces these two slimes as her own, calling them Sue and Law. Paula smiles brightly, explaining that these two cute little creatures are actually her familiars. Mia is completely mind-blown, asking if they are basically friends now, while Nino just softly smirks. Nino looks at Paula, saying her plan worked perfectly. Paula happily agrees, telling everyone they can just leave the rest of this epic fight to her. The slimes launch themselves through the air, diving straight into the massive monster to finish things. The slimes slam into the huge monster, sending liquid flying everywhere as Paula bravely charges. Nino watches the wild chaos, completely surprised she actually pulled it off with just two familiars. Paula holds her ground with her whip ready, clearly keeping the slimes totally under her command. She is using her specialized subjugation skill. It is a unique monster tamer ability, letting her charm and perfectly control any monster she targets, looking completely in charge here. Nino recognizes the game move, noting, it lets her give orders based on her level. Although he suspected she could do it from her earlier talk, he admits he never expected this much control over such high-level power. The massive enemy takes another heavy hit, getting completely torn apart as slime splashes. Nino spots a head opening. You and I know it is time to finish. You and I are jumping right in. Nino grips his weapon, channeling his magic into a massive blast, screaming for lightning to strike as his thunder spell erupts. The attack hits perfectly, blowing that monster away, while the whole team watches the absolute chaos unfold. The smoke clears. Paula takes a deep breath and sighs, admitting that opponent was seriously tough. Nino totally agrees. He admits he hated using his staff so soon, but they were totally doomed without her help. Paula beams, saying it's all because he truly trusted her. Nino insists they just had no other choice. He is honestly amazed she found a winning strategy so quickly. Walking away, Paula laughs, claiming she knew his plan the second he grabbed his staff, which totally weirds the other girl out. The girl asks if she's truly psychic. Paula just calls it a lucky guess. Meanwhile, Nino stays quiet and serious, wondering if he's simply overthinking how incredibly easily she handled everything. Nino watches Paula closely. After everything that just happened, he thinks her instincts seem way too sharp. Looking at her cheerful smile, he realizes there is still a ton he actually does not know. He keeps staring, trying to figure out her real deal. What is her actual plan? But Paula catches him looking and sweetly asks if something is wrong. Nino brushes it off, saying it's nothing, while secretly hoping he's just overthinking everything again. Moving on, he tells the crew to stay focused on finding water so they can save the village. Right then, Mia suddenly shouts for him to come look. She found a massive spot with clean water. Nino heads over. As everyone relaxes near the fountain, Paula leans in close. Now watch closely here. She mentions that since they're finally taking a quick breather, it might be the perfect time for Nino to finally confess whatever massive secret he's hiding. Nino looks back at her, totally confused. He asks what she's even talking about with this secret. But Paula doesn't miss a single beat, saying she obviously means the stuff he already knows. Specifically, those deep secrets hidden right here inside the mysterious depths of this labyrinth. Nino freezes. She must mean that specific spot. He just can't wrap his head around how Paula could ever possibly know that it even exists. Paula giggles at his panicked reaction, sweetly asking if she managed to guess right, leaving him totally speechless. She goes on to explain that after traveling together for a while, she easily picked up his little gestures, until she just completely started to understand his mind. She points out that biting his hand is a dead giveaway. He's making a strategy. Nino is stressed, biting his hand while the group notices his clenched fist. It's a clear sign some serious new orders are coming. Paula jumps back in. You and I know she totally figured out his entire plan ahead of time. She points and shouts. That exact pose is a massive giveaway that he's hiding something huge from everyone. But then, she smiles so sweetly, saying she finally learned exactly how to read him perfectly. Nino thinks her intuition is honestly scary. He seriously wonders if she has really been watching his every move that closely this whole entire time. Paula looks a bit shy, but explains she simply wants to be totally ready to support him the second anything goes wrong. Looking him straight in the eyes, blushing brightly, she says she honestly just could not help herself. Being looked at exactly like that makes Nino incredibly nervous. He realizes telling her to stop is impossible, but honestly, he figures, since she clearly does not mean any real harm, everything is probably totally fine. He tries getting things moving again by bringing up their earlier chat. As they start walking, Nino mentions the time she found the labyrinth water, making sure they are both completely back on the same page. Paula notices something feels off. She tells Nino he did not exactly look thrilled about what happened. Nino gets pretty embarrassed, realizing his true feelings were totally showing on his face. This whole time, looking down, Paula mentions she figured this place was not what he wanted, adding he clearly seemed to be hesitating. Nino listens quietly as she admits she thought he hid something. He nods, saying he sees where she is coming from. Scratching his head, he explains he was not trying to keep secrets. He just felt incredibly unsure. They both take a second to let everything sink in, standing in that quiet stone hallway. Paula mentions explaining all this stuff to Mia will be pretty tough. Nino completely agrees with her, but then, he suddenly realizes Mia already ran off, disappearing somewhere entirely on her own. Everyone is heading for the water. Nino says they must catch up. Trust me, we are watching whatever happens next together. Mia is completely losing her mind over this labyrinth. Water. Yelling about how incredible the oasis looks as Nino and Paula finally catch up. You and I can see those slimes just totally chilling now that the boss is gone. Mia doesn't hesitate for 1 second, scooping up a massive handful and declaring it's time to dig in. Nino desperately tries stopping her, warning her to wait because they haven't even checked if this stuff is safe to actually drink. But she's already chugging it down, screaming about how tasty it is, leaving him completely, utterly speechless. He guesses it's completely fine anyway, since slimes naturally purify whatever water they live inside. So Mia just stares at the spring, whispering how it's been literally forever since she drank anything this good. A massive, beautiful smile lights up her face, realizing this epic discovery means everyone back home is going to survive. Mia shouts she wants to bring some to her mom right away, but Nino just stands there looking seriously worried. Catching his heavy vibe, she asks what's wrong, pointing out that he suddenly looks incredibly gloomy and super down. Nino's face turns dead serious. He tells Mia to listen closely, explaining that just bringing back this labyrinth water alone won't be nearly enough to truly save the entire village. Mia absolutely panics, demanding why, since she thought finding clean water fixed everything. But Nino reveals it is only a temporary patch. Now pay attention here. He explains that securing this abnormal water is actually a really terrible omen. Staring at the floor, he reveals it means something far worse is approaching, and to actually protect everyone from the massive disaster they all know is creeping up on them, they must reach a very specific destination and confirm it actually exists down there. The entire squad goes completely silent as the heavy truth finally sinks in, and Mia finally nods, saying she understands the stakes. Nino glances away and apologizes, promising he wasn't trying to lie to her at all. But to reach that hidden location, they are going to have to dive down through several more dangerous floors together. He gets super serious, pointing out how dangerous this is getting. He suggests turning back right now, especially since Mia looks down for a quick second, processing it all, but then she declares, if that's the reality, she is totally all in, happily yelling that they should charge straight toward their goal with a massive, fearless smile. Nino is completely thrown off, desperately explaining he was totally serious about turning right back around. But Mia completely ignores that, asking what he is even saying. She argues that if the water alone won't fix things, they literally have no choice but to keep pushing forward. Nino just stands there, utterly speechless, while she cheerfully adds that getting to blast her magic non-stop, like, this is actually insanely fun for her too. Nino just stares at her. We both see it. Having fun with magic is her real motivation here. Paula smiles warmly, telling him she is completely on board to continue too, as long as it is what he truly desires. Ku and Yarrow start happily cheering for them to go, making the entire squad feel pumped and ready to take on absolutely anything. Nino gives a firm nod, agreeing to push onward. He tells his team that in this case, they must keep moving forward, but suddenly Mia stops, pointing back at the spring. She eagerly asks if there is any possible way to carry some back to their village. Nino glances at the pool, telling her to leave it all to him, because he has a brilliant plan. First, though, he casually walks over to the defeated boss's remains because it is officially time for some sweet loot. He reaches toward the glowing orbs, while Mia stands there watching, completely stunned by his actions. A system screen pops up, showing he successfully harvested Boss Slime Hide and a massive chunk of blue magic stone. Mia simply cannot believe her eyes, yelling out in shock, asking if you can actually harvest items directly from monsters. Paula stares at the glowing crystals he is holding, asking if these are the materials he meant. Nino nods, confirming they are absolutely crucial for what comes next. Turns out, the monsters in these labyrinths always carry magic stones inside, or sometimes their entire bodies become incredibly rare materials for transmutation. So basically every single time they defeat a monster, they can harvest all those valuable parts and stones to use later. Paula quickly realizes that collecting these exact materials will massively help their entire village. Nino gives a firm nod, stating that with these specific items secured, he can finally begin the epic transmutation process. Holding the glowing stones over the slime hide, he starts merging them, focusing incredible energy into one single spot, until a notification pops. Total success. He officially finishes crafting the slime hide bag, which basically looks like a giant red jug. Paula is super impressed, mentioning how they can finally haul all the water they want, while Mia simply stands there, absolutely mind blown by this awesome new gear. Nino explains this bag is totally special because it expands and shrinks, meaning they can fit massive amounts inside without any issues. Mia is already imagining how thrilled the villagers will be to get this water, but Nino interrupts, revealing that there is actually even more to it. You and I weren't expecting this. He reveals the water itself is actually a transmutation material, leaving Paula completely and utterly shocked. Let us watch this together. She asks if carrying more helps him out even more, and Nino tells her she has got it exactly right. Knowing she is directly helping him changes everything, and Paula says she is getting super fired up to move. Mia catches that sudden motivation boost and tells her she absolutely will not lose to her. As they both get completely ready, Paula proposes a wild challenge to see who can haul back the most water, and Mia goes all in, declaring it an official, high-stakes competition. Nino watches them get totally hyped and tries saying there is no need to go that far. But Mia is not listening at all, as she snatches the bags and charges right out. Nino is shocked. She is actually taking this seriously. And then Paula charges right behind her with her very own set of gear. She tells Nino to keep crafting bags while she is gone, leaving him standing there simply trying to process why they are so insanely hyped up over a basic water trip. Mia reaches the water and tries getting to work, but she immediately notices something super weird about the bag surface. She starts totally freaking out over the strange sensation, wondering what the actual deal is with this weird material since she cannot even get a solid grip. Nino just stares in pure disbelief while Mia endlessly struggles with the slippery bag. So Paula bravely steps in to see what the fuss is all about. She takes the bag from Mia, questioning if it is actually that hard to handle, but once she feels it, she gets completely lost in the texture. Pay attention now. She goes on about the softness, totally forgetting their little competition. Paula and Mia are totally lost in the feeling of the bags, hugging them tight and saying, the texture is so incredibly soft that their whole bodies are just melting. They completely forgot their real task at hand. Nino just stands there with a blank stare, telling them to stop messing around and hurry up gathering water. So the girls finally snap right out of their weird trance. Paula wonders what she is even doing, while Mia tells herself she really cannot afford to be spacing out like this. And they both jump back to work with way too much frantic energy. Mia treats it like an epic secret mission, splashing water into the bags and telling herself she is doing this for Nino. Meanwhile, Paula is heavily struggling with the gross, slimy feeling of the weird material. She tries pushing through the weird texture, reminding herself she is doing it for everyone. Back at the village, leading both of them to go into an absolute, total frenzy. They are yelling about gathering as much water as physically possible, and Nino starts getting a really bad feeling about just how incredibly fast they are moving. He tries to grab their attention, shouting for them to wait a single second before things get completely out of hand. He loudly tells them that they really need to relax. The bags he made have a strict durability limit and they are pushing way too hard. Walking over, he points out that even if they fill them all, hauling that massive weight back to the village is completely impossible. But he can clearly tell they are not even listening to a word he says. You saw this coming, right? Just as suspected. One overstuffed bag cannot take the pressure and completely bursts. Nino can only watch as water sprays everywhere, soaking the girls instantly when the overstuffed bag gives out. A massive explosion of water blasts everywhere with a shocked yell. Mia ends up flat on her back groaning, while Paula just sits there, completely soaked to the bone. The two of them are a total mess, and Nino just closes his eyes, looking absolutely exhausted by the whole chaotic situation. He sighs and suggests they might just have to start the whole thing over. Mia looks incredibly ashamed, and Paula sincerely apologizes for getting so carried away that she actually broke their gear. Moving on, they finally get things back on track. Nino checks the massive pile of water bags, figuring they have enough, while Mia happily dances around with their epic haul. Mia tells the little ones it is time to head out, but Nino suddenly stops, looking over and wondering what Euro and Ku are doing huddled on the ground. He absolutely cannot believe his eyes. The two kids are actually tearing into a giant slime, casually eating it like a little snack. Nino just stands there watching them, totally wondering if eating a weird monster like that even tastes good. Meanwhile, Mia completely panics and runs over, telling them they will get a massive stomachache if they do not stop. But it turns out there is a good reason. Nino realizes both of them actually possess a very mysterious eat skill, hiding in their status. Nino thinks to himself, this crazy new discovery might actually be super useful later on. He smiles and tells the two kids to go ahead and eat their fill. Mia watches them, feeling pretty unsure if letting little kids eat random monsters is actually a good idea. Moving on, Nino starts walking toward the stairs, telling everyone it is time to hit the second floor. But Mia suddenly calls out for him to wait up a second. She sounds super worried. They might have a major problem on their hands. Nino stops and looks back at her, simply asking what the matter is this time. Mia admits with a sheepish laugh. She used up all her magic, and Paula is completely drained too. That is where we leave it today, trust me. And I need to see what happens next. Mia starts crying, asking if they are just going to be completely useless baggage for this whole journey. But Nino just gives this calm smile, telling the girls not to worry because he already has a brilliant plan to fix everything. Stick with me here. He pulls out a mystery item, promising it will let Mia absolutely spam her magic again. Mia lets out a massive, joyful shout as bright fire suddenly erupts right from her hand. Paula is totally amazed too, just staring at the powerful magic sparking between her own fingers. Mia starts cheering super loud, yelling about how incredibly awesome it is that her power returned instantly. Nino looks back to check, asking if they feel their energy coming back. Paula is still completely stunned, trying to process exactly what just happened. Nino holds up a little flask, casually explaining it is just a magic recovery potion he whipped up. He says drinking it fully restores magic, which leaves Paula absolutely speechless, that he can just casually craft amazing things like that. Mia gets way too excited, asking if this means she has infinite magic now, but Nino quickly grounds her, explaining the boost will only last for a little bit. Mia completely ignores that, getting this hilariously wild look as she dreams about totally unlimited power. She acts super smug, boldly declaring that her glorious era has finally arrived. Though Nino quickly reminds her that her fire spells were actually totally useless against their last enemies. With the magic crisis officially solved, he tells the whole squad it is time to get moving. The team pushes deeper into the dark cave, and Yoru quickly notices the visibility is getting seriously bad. Cool looks really nervous, clutching her hands tight while telling the group she is starting to hear creepy, echoing voices. They bravely keep pushing forward until the squad finally reaches the dungeon's mysterious second floor. Mia is still totally riding her earlier hype, sweating slightly while mumbling to herself about being completely, absolutely unbeatable. Nino tries to make her focus, warning her to stay alert because getting distracted in here is a really bad idea. Watch closely. Right then, a huge skeleton dog with terrifying claws leaps from the shadows. Mia completely loses her cool and starts screaming. Nino quickly yells for Paula to step up, and she gives a fierce shout as she jumps in. Paula swings her whip with an absolute ton of force. She connects perfectly, completely shattering the monster's skull in just one epic strike. Nino picks up the dropped loot, inspecting a black magic stone while casually noting that the monster really was not a major threat. Mia is practically shaking like a leaf, crying that she just wants to go home. Nino hilariously asks what happened to her being totally unbeatable. There is zero time to chat, though. The squad stays constantly on the move, fiercely battling their way deeper into the mysterious cavern. Paula inspects the remains of the monsters they defeated, pointing out that this entire floor seems completely filled with these exact same dogs. Nino begs for a little personal space, asking Mia to stop clinging to his arm so tightly, but she just cries, saying she honestly cannot help it. It gets eerily quiet for a second. Nino wonders if they actually cleared the area, but then he freezes, suddenly remembering a very specific detail from the game. You and I knew it was too quiet. A massive swarm of giant bats with glowing eyes drops down, surrounding our whole group. Nino yells that even more are incoming, fully realizing that these creepy bats are the actual main threat of this whole area. Knowing he has to act super fast before a specific signal triggers, he rapidly pulls out his crafting materials and gets straight to work. He activates his transmutation skill, and a magical whirlwind of bright energy starts rushing all around them. Once he finishes up, Nino holds out both hands desperately, telling everyone to hurry up and grab one of the mysterious items he just created. Mia gets literal stars in her eyes, excitedly asking if he just handed them some ultimate weapon so overpowered they could fight. Completely blindfolded, he reveals a handful of weird, glowing bean-shaped objects. Paula looks totally confused, while Mia eagerly waits to see what they actually do. But Mia immediately freaks out and runs away, screaming about how she absolutely refuses to touch any more slime. Nino desperately tries to force the items on her, but she just shouts back that there is zero chance she is ever doing that. Paula's eyes suddenly go wide as she spots something through the chaos. She points at the ceiling, yelling for everyone to look. Right there, a massive, terrifying boss bat is hanging upside down, totally surrounded by its swarm. Nino locks onto the massive target. He realizes their only real chance is finding a way to stop that giant thing from moving. but it is totally too late. The boss opens its jaw wide, and Nino frantically warns everyone the bat signal is coming. A devastating sonic wave blasts the whole group. Nino grunts in pain, tightly clutching his ears, barely able to even stand up from the intense pressure. These specific ringing bats are incredibly dangerous because they literally weaponize sound against you. Here is what we are dealing with. Once that boss signals, they all scream to scramble your brain, making it completely impossible to fight back. Poor Mia just completely loses it, crying into her hands and loudly yelling about how totally gross and awful this whole situation is. Alright, stick with me here. Mia is losing her mind from the deafening noise, but Nino yells to stop complaining. It's a massive emergency, so they beg him to hurry while he grabs the slime material. Nino quickly stuffs the jelly-like material right into his ears, while Yoru nervously watches him from behind. Those creepy bats are still swarming the ceiling above them. Suddenly, everything goes completely silent, and Yoru and Mia look up in pure, utter shock. Catching his breath, Nino asks if they can actually hear him, explaining he just crafted epic earplugs from slime hide. The slime's natural stretchiness perfectly fits any ear, completely blocking out those super high-pitched bat screams. Mia is still super confused by this, asking if they are safe with these in, and Nino gives a solid yes. Paula just cheerfully laughs, realizing the squishy slime in her ears actually kind of tickles her. With their hearing totally protected, Nino tells everyone to go finish this epic fight. Standing at the front, Nino proudly tells everyone they can finally fight back now. He knows these bats are super fast, but by blocking that awful ringing, our heroes have the ultimate advantage. Now watch closely. Paula and Yoru eagerly jump into the fight, but suddenly, a massive monster bat drops from the ceiling right in front of them. They manage to take it down. The giant creature crashes hard into the dirt, scattering the tiny ones. Nino excitedly checks the loot, finding wings, meat, and a magic stone, declaring that should perfectly do it. Mia pulls out the slime plugs, loudly declaring she is totally done with slimes, while Paula simply sighs, just happy they actually survived. Once they settle down, Nino happily suggests heading forward, but Yoru suddenly notices something incredibly weird. A glowing notification pops up, revealing they picked up a highly suspicious stone. Nino curiously holds the strange rock in his hand, completely wondering what its actual purpose is. Staring closely at the bizarre round object, Nino figures this is the perfect time to use his awesome analysis skill. Meanwhile, Mia starts sniffing the air, asking if anyone else smells something funky nearby. Paula notices it too, covering her mouth as they stare at those pointy growths. Mia asks what they even are. They look just like tiny mountains. Paula thinks they are stalactites, but Nino's skill kicks in, and he hilariously realizes exactly what kind of material he is holding. The bright analysis screen confirms it's from bats. It turns out, the stone is literally bat guano. He looks around the room, suddenly realizing all those giant pillars are made of the exact same gross stuff. I know what you're thinking, he shouts. They're standing in giant bat poop piles, leaving Mia completely grossed out. Mia completely loses her mind, screaming loudly and begging everyone to run away from that area super fast. Desperate to find a clean corner or the next floor, she panics. While Nino gently tries to calm her down, Mia is still totally panicking. Nino quickly checks the info screen again. Totally agree, they definitely do not need to be told twice. But wait, Nino stops. Looking closer at the piles, he gets this super serious face, telling everyone they absolutely must collect every bit of guano. Mia is totally confused, asking what he is saying, but Nino is already grabbing chunks lightning fast, leaving her screaming in pure shock that he is actually hoarding it. She loudly asks what they could possibly do with those gross poop stones. Nino cheerfully explains, there is totally more to it, though he nervously laughs, admitting he does not know its true purpose yet. Mia stands there looking totally drained, asking if he is really hoarding this gross stuff without a solid plan. Nino happily points out the screen shows a way higher rarity rating than that boss slime hide, quickly explaining how this awesome system works. The magical rarity level pops up whenever he grabs new material. Because its value is incredibly high, it will massively help their village, which perfectly explains his intense focus. He's totally convinced it will be useful later, while Mia watches him, wondering if he's actually serious. Watching Nino gather guano, Mia admits she still doesn't get his logic, but Paula cheerfully chuckles, asking if she truly feels that way. Mia curiously asks Paula if she actually understood his weird logic. Paula just gives a warm smile, vaguely saying who knows. As they happily walk forward, she points out his slime hide bag ended up being absolutely perfect for carrying water. This makes her truly believe that everything Nino decides to grab here must have some massive, hidden meaning, even if it is not obvious right now. Mia sees Paula, trusts Nino completely, and trust me, you're going to love what happens next. As they march deeper into the dungeon, Mia seriously wonders why Paula trusts this guy so unconditionally without any doubts. Stick with me here, you and I are about to find out if there is some hidden secret behind this crazy level of loyalty. Shaking off those wild thoughts, she just keeps moving forward with the whole group to explore this totally unknown area. Paula scans their mysterious surroundings, pointing out how every single dungeon floor looks completely different from the last one. Nino totally agrees that anything could happen next, warning the entire squad to stay sharp and move forward with absolute, extreme caution. Suddenly, Mia looks absolutely stunned, feeling a bizarre energy shift and wondering what is happening. Out of nowhere, bizarre liquid orbs start flying all over the place, catching the entire squad completely by surprise. Nino totally panics, thinking they triggered a monster trap, while Paula frantically searches for the source. Looking totally distressed, Mia calls out for Nino with a very shaky voice. She absolutely panics because endless water balls keep pouring out of her body uncontrollably. Paula and Nino just watch in pure shock, with Nino desperately yelling out to ask what is happening to her. Paula guesses it might be a monster attack, but Nino points out the total lack of warnings. He slowly starts putting the puzzle pieces together while Mia desperately struggles against this wild magic energy. Getting a super serious look, Paula tells Mia that she finally figured out what this crazy thing is. Turns out it is a new spell called Water Bubble, leaving Nino standing there totally lost. Mind blown, Mia cannot believe it and asks if it is really a brand new spell, which Nino casually confirms. Fighting monsters inside this dungeon actually lets you absorb magic energy and get way stronger. Exactly like what Nino and Paula are doing right now to level up. The energy from the monsters they beat lets them learn awesome new spells. Absolutely floored by this, Mia happily yells about how amazing these magic dungeons really are for training. She and the team start playfully testing the bubbles, laughing because they do not hurt. Paula honestly thinks they look pretty weak. Nino smirks and claims Water Bubble is actually way more powerful than it looks. Mia gives him major side-eye as the squad finally steps down into the mysterious third floor of the cave. Don't blink now. Mia spots massive holes covering the cave walls and gets a terrible feeling about what is coming next. Nino asks her what is wrong, but then he pauses to think, tapping his chin as he realizes these holes might actually form a massive monster nest, which completely changes the entire survival plan for our squad. Paula sighs because Nino zoned out again, while Mia worries he is finding more weird stuff. Splash! A massive wave hits them. Nino warns it is digestive fluid, while Mia panics, and then two absolutely giant, disgusting worm monsters drop down to surround them. Pure panic. Mia makes total nonsense noises out of fear, just as Nino calmly identifies these giant worms. Staring at the cave walls, he finally pieces together that all those creepy holes are a giant nest. Mia keeps freaking out while Paula tells her to stay calm. Even with those worms closing in, the giant worms get right in their faces, and Mia completely loses her mind. She starts spamming bubbles everywhere to push them back, but Paula shouts that random shots are useless. The girls desperately beg Nino for a battle plan, but he just stands there laughing like a maniac. He gets this insanely dark look in his eyes, leaving Mia entirely confused about why he is laughing. I know exactly what you are thinking. Nino stands completely calm as giant worms loom, calling this a huge catch. Paula gets an extremely bad vibe here, and Mia totally agrees because Nino always plans incredibly weird stuff with that look. Suddenly, Nino turns around and announces his crazy choice. Pointing at the drooling worm monster, he actually suggests making it their new party member. The entire group just freezes up, looking completely shocked by his insane idea. Mia totally loses it, screaming that he must be joking about that gross thing. But he just claims he is completely serious. He starts laughing about how the village will love it, while Mia keeps yelling absolutely no way. Mia keeps desperately shouting that she is absolutely against this. But Nino simply ignores her and asks Paula for help. While Mia practically begs for someone to listen here, Paula checks her hands, saying she can handle one, but getting close is the real major issue, since these nasty monsters are dripping with digestive fluid. Paula and Nino hold their ground as giant worms close in, but Mia hates it, warning Nino not to blame her when things go horribly wrong. Staring at the disgusting, dripping mouth of the monster, let that sink in for a second. In a game, this slime lowers stats, but here in the real world, it is incredibly dangerous. Let's jump into this wild journey together. Nino stays completely calm and tells the crew they still have a move left, ordering Mia to activate her water bubble spell right now. Mia completely panics, yelling that she already blasted that exact spell earlier, and it literally did absolutely zero damage. But Nino shuts that down instantly, firmly saying no. He quickly explains she really shouldn't be targeting those monsters at all. Instead, she needs to blast those water bubbles directly into the empty space surrounding their group. Mia looks utterly confused by this weird tactic, so Nino tells her to focus up, because he has a brilliant strategy to save them. Step 1 of his master plan requires everyone to huddle together in one spot. This risky bait forces every single giant worm to attack from all sides. Nino explains that grouping up creates a single target, forcing all those hungry monsters to lunge for the final strike at the exact same time. The crew holds their breath as huge monsters tower over them, while Nino waits for the ultimate opening, watching for the very second their massive jaws open completely. That is the cue, and Nino shouts to cast it. Mia fully locks in, preparing to unleash every last water bubble she has in her arsenal. Nino screams the command to fire, and instantly, massive water bubbles totally flood the entire area around them. He loudly orders Mia to pump every single drop of her magic directly into that spell. She looks super anxious, but he relentlessly cheers her on, shouting to keep feeding it power without pausing until the giant worms fiercely slam straight into their newly formed barrier. Now pay attention here. Instead of breaking through, their acid harmlessly splashes away. Mia is completely blown away, asking if those fragile bubbles seriously just absorbed all that toxic fluid like it was nothing. Nino gives a confident smirk, knowing it completely matches the game. In this reality, water bubble is an absolute unit that tanks physical hits. He tells everyone this is actually an incredibly overpowered defensive shield, and by huddling up safely together, those huge worms literally cannot touch them, no matter how much they attack. Nino proudly points out that as long as they maintain the solid wall, those monsters are definitely going to run dry. Since their only real trick is that fluid, they will quickly realize it is totally useless. Once they see defeat, they will turn back and attempt to flee straight to their nest. The plan is truly that simple. Nino and Paula patiently wait to strike. The very second those huge worms turn around, and suddenly, the entire squad violently leaps into high gear. Nino loudly commands everyone to launch an all-out offensive, charging forward as one. After the intense chaos fully settles down, Mia breathes a huge sigh. She cheerfully claims they somehow survived, admitting she genuinely believed it was game over the moment that giant beasts suddenly appeared on scene. Nino stares at the massive pile of enemies, guessing that big one was the floor boss. Mia gets totally hyped, bragging that she knew her incredible power would save the village. Then she cheerfully corrects herself, boldly declaring she will save the entire universe. You and I both know she is dreaming. She stands there trembling, absolutely obsessed with her newfound magic. Nino simply plays along, giving a lazy nod since she is distracted. Nino soon decides to brush off her wild ego and focuses on the most crucial mission detail, figuring out if they successfully tamed the beast or just threw their energy completely away. Paula suddenly appears, grinning from ear to ear, proudly holding the giant worm, causing Mia to immediately shriek in pure terror. Mia is still screaming in the background about how utterly disgusting that slimy creature actually is. Paula happily strokes her new pet, calling it super cute when calm, making Nino seriously question if she has lost her mind. Paula completely ignores the gross slime and sharp teeth. She just blushes brightly and excitedly announces to the team that the monster is named Maycon. Nino cannot even mentally process that ridiculous name, begging Paula to repeat it as he stares completely dumbfounded. He quickly whispers to Mia about how Paula truly possesses the worst naming sense ever witnessed. Mia warns him to stay quiet to avoid being offensive, but Paula easily catches them whispering, cheerfully leaning in and asking if they have any sort of issue with little Maycon. That huge beast towers right behind her, looking incredibly menacing, while Mia leaps away loudly, shrieking. Nino frantically shakes his head, insisting everything is absolutely wonderful, terrified of making her angry while that giant monster is standing right there beside her. He secretly swears to never, ever cross her again while he inspects their hard-earned loot. They successfully bagged a huge magic stone and plenty of useful monster meat, making this wild struggle totally worth the effort. Moving deeper inside, the cheerful squad finally enters the 4th dungeon level. The entire zone has shifted into a massive tropical jungle covered in green vines, and Mia is honestly amazed, loudly praising this awesome new environment. As they venture deeper into the green brush, these small winged beings start fluttering around them, chirping really strangely. Trust me, stick around. Mia cheerfully asks what these super cute little creatures actually are. Come along with me on this one. Nino spots a pack of fairies ahead, but Mia's mood instantly hits rock bottom. She glares at those tiny spirits, seriously questioning if they actually have to fight something so incredibly small. Nino glances ahead, assuring Mia they won't need to throw hands this time. The whole squad quickly realizes these fairies are just super friendly little monsters. They are incredibly social and curious. Mia has an absolute blast playing around with them while moving through that dense jungle floor. Letting out a happy sigh, she admits that watching Yoro and Ku goof off with those tiny spirits was today's ultimate highlight. Paula completely agrees. It was a super wholesome sight, and they somehow even scored one as a tamed beast. This amazing luck makes Mia wish every single dungeon floor was exactly this chill. Nino totally agrees, but here is where it gets wild for us. He breaks the harsh news that their luck just ran out at a massive root wall, pointing out an epic boss battle is still waiting. Suddenly, these creepy dark fairies spawn. Mia literally bursts into tears, calling him a total liar for promising 0 fights. Nino just heavily sighs. This epic clash? Totally unavoidable. Dust clears. Mia stands over those defeated dark fairies, feeling super bad for absolutely wrecking them. Meanwhile, Nino checks out their epic fresh loot drop, scoring awesome magic stones, rare fairy scales, and weird thread. Mia is totally shocked they eat caterpillars, while Paula just marvels at their insane hunger. Nino notices the little fairies looking super bummed, but he hypes the squad up, pointing out that their ultimate goal is finally sitting right there in front. Mia gets incredibly hyped, and Paula seriously starts wondering what kind of insane zone they'll discover. So, Nino leads the charge with his trusty lantern, guiding the whole party straight through that glowing crystal cave. They finally reach the exit, stepping onto a huge cliff overlooking a massive open world. Mia's mind is completely blown. She literally starts screaming, completely desperate to figure this place out, while Paula wonders if they somehow accidentally warp right back outside. It looks way too realistic for an underground zone, but Nino quickly shuts that down. He confirms they are still deep inside the labyrinth, standing on the exact legendary floor that is supposedly going to save absolutely everyone. Nino gazes out across the epic landscape, boldly telling the squad that right at the world's edge, they actually discovered their final hope. The rest of the crew just stands frozen on that cliff, struggling to wrap their minds around this crazy zone being any kind of real salvation. Naofumi confirms everything, explaining how this exact spot will become an absolute fortress to keep everyone perfectly safe when the disaster finally strikes. Mia is totally confused, but you and I know what's up, when Naofumi just spreads his arms wide, telling her to really take in the insane view. Lush, crazy nature is blooming everywhere, and brilliant light from those epic sunstones just pours right over the valley. Plus, this wild land is absolutely massive, endlessly stretching out past the horizon. Naofumi flashes a huge grin, knowing exactly what kind of masterpiece he can build here. He instantly visualizes it all. Massive green fields, bustling workshops, and actual solid homes for everyone. He realizes that using his crazy powers, they can literally construct anything they imagine. This leads him to loudly promise that, right here, he will build a sanctuary for everyone to live in absolute peace. Standing bold at the valley's edge, Naofumi passionately shouts out that he is going to construct an entire brand new village right there. Mia looks totally mind-blown, questioning if a massive underground village is even physically possible. Naofumi just calmly smiles and confirms it. He gets incredibly serious, reminding the squad they only have 3 short years left before the surface gets completely destroyed. So, combining his god-tier building skills with this hidden labyrinth's crazy layout, he explains they actually have a genuine shot at survival. Naofumi sounds insanely confident, hyping the group that they can totally pull this off. And Paula just quietly stares, finally realizing that crafting a totally safe haven for everyone is exactly what Naofumi wanted from the very beginning. Naofumi gazes right toward the future, mentioning that when the epic day finally arrives to march back into the capital, Ally completely jumps in with the other beastmen. Looking super hyped, he proudly promises he will absolutely be ready for action by then. The whole squad heads down those ancient stone steps, while Mia struggles to wrap her brain around building an entire massive village. She admits to Naofumi that despite the total shock, she genuinely believes he can pull it off. Leaving him amazed she actually has that much real faith in him. Mia stays completely quiet for a second, but then quickly brings up something she has been wondering about, keeping a very close eye on how Paula is acting. Even Nino senses something weird, thinking she is acting totally off, while Paula just stands there, looking completely dazed and blissfully happy. Nino gets a little anxious, asking what is wrong, or if he said something totally weird. Flustered, Paula quickly promises, he said, absolutely nothing odd. She almost calls him, my dear, trust me. We are not ready for her suddenly dropping to one knee right on that stone floor. Alright, you and I are jumping in. She calls him Lord, totally shocking Nino as he yells back. Nino asks why she is suddenly acting like this. Paula claims she was just incredibly moved by his epic plan. She looks at him with pure devotion, saying she has decided to dedicate her entire self to him forever. Because of that, she tells him she is going to speak to him with way more respect. But Nino quickly tries to get her to slow down and wait. He says he really appreciates the sentiment, but being called Lord is way too much for him, begging her to drop it. Paula looks up with big watery eyes, asking if she is really not allowed to do it, leaving Nino completely stuck for words. Nino rubs his cheek, looking totally shy as he admits he actually preferred the way she used to talk to him before. This makes Paula light up instantly. She agrees to go back to calling him my dear, making Nino feel like things are finally perfectly normal. She looks dreamy while admitting she might have jumped the gun a little bit, leaving Nino pretty confused about what she actually means. So Mia jumps in and starts teasing him, pointing a finger and saying this whole mess is his fault. Nino cannot believe his ears, but Mia explains that he just got way too intense while talking about his grand dreams. And now, Paula is completely obsessed with him. Her loyalty is so much higher now. Nino still struggles to keep up, asking what she even means by Paula being so devoted to him. Mia just gives a smug look, resting her chin on her hand, saying there is zero doubt. Nino looks at Paula, who is staring right back at him with pure worship in her eyes, and he suddenly realizes he has absolutely no idea what is happening in her head. Moving on, the village chief gives solid advice, telling him to head out and find his own path on his terms. He must find the path that truly belongs to him, with Mia laughing right beside him, cheering him on as he looks straight toward the future. Fast forward to late night, the whole group is finally standing outside the massive tree. The moon shines high. Mia realizes how much time they lost, shouting about how it got dark before she even noticed. Paula agrees, looking at her hands and mentioning lots of time has passed. Nino stares up at the sky, and serious, thinking about how the moon looks exactly the same as always. He starts getting stuck in his own head, wondering if the family he left behind in the royal capital is even safe right now, and he just cannot stop stressing about the Night Order still aggressively hunting him. He is terrified of what might happen if they find him here. Pay attention now. A sudden shout from the bushes cuts his thoughts short as three mysterious figures watch them. They look totally stunned, seeing the group there. Before anyone can react, a guy yells to get them. Men jump out from the dark, catching Nino and the girls completely off guard. Nino grits his teeth, realizing this is highly dangerous. He looks back at the figures, panicking, wondering if these are the pursuers he is worried about this whole time. The attackers start surrounding them with pitchforks and shovels, and Nino knows he cannot let them get captured here. But Paula is not having it. She steps up, telling the fools to back off, sending one guy flying as he yells loudly. Paula stares them down with a terrifying look, telling the group if they want to avoid getting crushed, they better stop moving immediately. Can you believe this? Origin gets caught by a huge sandworm, screaming to be let go while Mia looks on, totally confused by it. She suddenly freezes up and tells everyone to just wait, because she actually recognizes that voice. Nino looks over and sees the entire village crowd standing there holding pitchforks and farm tools. He simply cannot believe his own eyes. He asks why the villagers are out here in the middle of the night, but Paula remains in combat mode. She looks at the guys on the ground, asking if there is some kind of misunderstanding happening between them. She stands there with her whip and monster, casually wondering what she should even do with these people now that they are cornered. She thinks about roughing them up just enough to make them talk, or maybe doing something much, much worse. Nino starts freaking out, realizing that since it is so dark, Paula probably has zero idea who she is actually threatening. Paula's monster looms over them as she calmly promises to start melting them from the feet up. Nino completely loses it, screaming for her to wait before things get way out of hand. Nino yells at Paula to stop immediately, pointing out she is actually threatening the village folks. Paula's jaw just completely drops. She cannot believe she almost took out the villagers, leaving her so embarrassed and totally guilty that she hits the floor, bowing deeply to apologize. So what do we learn here? She begs for punishment, but the villagers wave their hands, admitting they were at fault. They tell her everything is fine and no big deal, but Paula just will not stop crying. She cries out, completely unable to forgive her own reckless actions, and decides she must absolutely take matters into her own hands to fix her huge mistake. Let's dive right in. It gets super dramatic. So Nino says she is completely derailing their whole talk. He simply tells her to stop. She instantly switches moods, smiling and calling him dear, while the nearby villagers find this whole vibe incredibly weird. Nino finally starts summarizing the whole situation so they can get everything back on track. The villagers point out that this giant mess actually started with Mia. She just laughs it off, while a village woman strongly scolds her for wandering around. So incredibly late. Mia feels terrible and quickly apologizes, but one guy explains they only came out because everyone was highly worried. Hearing, Mia headed toward the river with Nino's group. The entire village showed up just to check things out. Nino listens closely as they describe terrifying monsters creeping right out of that strange cave. From their perspective, it looked like a total nightmare. Nino realizes they panicked, thinking his group was gone, leaving the villagers feeling absolutely terrible about attacking them. They ask him what those cave creatures really are, and Nino knows. It is finally time to come clean. He asks everyone to listen up and starts revealing the real truth about that hole. He explains it was actually a pure magic energy pool, making the villagers lose it. They cannot believe what they are hearing as the news sinks in. The villagers are just absolutely losing it. Now, pay close attention here. One guy yells out, demanding to know how a dangerous monster den stayed completely hidden right beneath their village. Dirk tries his very best to get everyone to relax, shouting at the top of his lungs for everyone to please just stay calm. Nino watches the chaos unfold, realizing nobody actually knew the real truth. He figures the major secret stayed perfectly safe until he personally stumbled right onto that exact location. Turns out, a powerful magic barrier hid the entrance from everyone. So, the massive village panic makes total sense. The swarming crowd begs Dirk for a solid answer, desperately asking what they are supposed to do now. Dirk looks extremely stressed and completely speechless. Nino steps up, declaring their first move must be getting word to the Lord immediately. He adds they must request a full investigation, but Dirk drops a massive hammer. If the danger is totally real, they will have no choice but to abandon the village completely. The horned men cannot believe his own ears, asking if they really must abandon the entire village. While Nino just stands there, the villagers completely lose it, screaming about spending years of hard work building this wonderful place up from absolutely nothing. Heimo gets right in Nino's face, angrily demanding to know why he ever went and found that secret dungeon entrance in the first place. But someone else quickly shuts him down, telling Heimo to stop because none of the situation is actually Nino's fault. Paula looks completely heartbroken, asking if their precious home is really ending like this. Nino simply stays quiet, looking completely locked in, as he finally realizes just how incredibly bad things have truly gotten for every single person. He remembers his old game knowledge, thinking about how this very village was always strictly tied to the world's overall balance. Back then, The entire goal was solving everyone's problems and keeping happiness levels incredibly high, because keeping people totally happy was the only possible way to slow down the eventual end of that entire fantasy world. We both feel the tension here. Nino realizes losing this village essentially means game over for the world. Nino knows if things keep going this exact way, the entire world is headed straight for a massive disaster that will suddenly hit them all at once. If that happens, it is not just the village and his family on the line, but literally everything he deeply cares about will vanish forever. Nino stops everyone right there, standing tall, telling the frantic crowd to just wait a second. Hans looks incredibly surprised as Nino officially addresses the group, boldly declaring that he must be totally honest about the real truth of this entire situation. He looks them straight in the eye, calmly explaining that the only reason they even entered that magic pool was to save the village, leaving the villagers standing there in pure, total, and absolute shock. Meanwhile, Nino tells himself there is absolutely no way he can back down now. He thinks about his beloved family waiting back in the capital, knowing he absolutely must pull this off for their sake, and for everyone else here too. He is totally locked in, absolutely determined to make every single village resident completely understand what is happening. Dirk just stands there processing everything, slowly repeating the words "save the village" like he cannot believe it, looking Nino right in the face and asking what he actually means by that wild statement. "Trust me, you won't forget this." Dirk and the others listen closely as Nino drops a massive bombshell about the pool. He gets incredibly hyped up, excitedly explaining that the mysterious spot is actually a massive treasure trove filled with unbelievable epic loot. "Stick with me, we are diving straight into an underground labyrinth packed with epic loot." The villagers stand there totally confused, wondering if this is actually a real treasure trove. But Nino just flashes a super confident smile. He tells everyone to look for themselves, casually dropping some massive glowing crystals right in front of Hans, who is absolutely losing his mind. The merchant stares at the glowing gems, completely speechless and unable to describe this wild sight. Nino watches him freak out, feeling relieved since a pro merchant like Hans knows exactly what these are worth. Hans desperately grabs the shiny crystals, screaming about how absolutely unbelievable this haul is. The crowd watches in total shock, and Mia gets totally creeped out, telling Hans he looks like an absolute creep, staring at the loot like that. Ute stays back with her arms crossed, completely skeptical and asking if those rocks are actually worth anything. Hans snaps right back to Ute, letting her know she is completely wrong. This glowing stone is an ultra-rare treasure you practically never see in the wild. He explains that just one tiny rock is worth 50 gold coins, basically an absolute fortune for anyone here. That is enough cash for the entire village to live comfortably for months without stressing over a single thing. Ute is stunned, asking if it actually costs that much, while Nino just smirks, saying that is not even the best part. Now watch this closely. He pulls out massive bottles and actually invites the entire crowd to take a sip. Everyone stares at the weird liquid, wondering if it is just normal water, but Nino simply tells them to take a drink and find out. The guys who taste it are instantly blown away. One shouts that he can actually feel raw energy surging through his entire body. Eugen absolutely loves it, claiming he has not had water this good in months, making the blacksmith aggressively demand his own bottle. Nino flexes even more epic loot, explaining they can use these materials to craft magic stones or daily gear, proving to the entire stunned crowd that absolutely every single piece of this insane haul came straight from the dangerous labyrinth. Everyone is totally losing it over this treasure, and Ute asks him if it is really true that this came from the labyrinth. The villagers still look completely skeptical, and one guy leans in to ask how Nino actually fought the monsters in there, admitting no offense, but it is pretty hard to picture a scrawny dude like him winning a real fight. Nino just plays it completely cool, explaining he had some incredibly dependable allies by his side the whole time, including Paula. But a villager points out that while her monsters are strong, Nino did not have her with him when he started out. He keeps pressing Nino, demanding to know how he managed to survive out there alone before ever meeting up with Paula. Nino looks at Mia and tells the crowd there is a good reason for that, making her look a little nervous as he proudly announces to the entire crowd that Mia is actually an exceptionally talented mage. "You and I know that sounds wild," and the villagers immediately burst out laughing at the idea. One guy even jokes that Mia can barely light a campfire, leaving her standing there pouting at everyone while they crack up. Another villager tells Nino he is taking the joke way too far, while Mia stands there looking totally annoyed as Nino calls her name, completely ignoring all the haters. Mia starts happily dancing around, telling everyone she has become a completely different person lately, which leaves a few younger kids in the room looking totally confused. She keeps the hype train rolling, loudly bragging that right now, she could absolutely one-shot any monster in just a matter of seconds. Mia fiercely thrusts her hand out, energy intensely swirling around it. She shouts that she is officially a great mage, switching through flashy poses to look cool, until Nino finally tells her to drop the dramatic poses and just do it. The guys in the back just laugh, mocking her for acting all high and mighty, betting there is no way she hits the fireplace from that far away. Mia does not back down. She builds up an insane amount of heat in her hand, playfully asking what they think could have changed, before letting out a massive, roaring blast of fire that violently rips through the air. It heads straight for the target like a huge pillar of flame, completely swallowing the entire fireplace, leaving the whole room standing there in absolute, dead silence. Mia just stands there with a blank expression, wondering why nobody is giving her that huge reaction she expected. So she decides to give it another shot. Flashing a grin and telling everyone she is going to do it again, she lets another absolutely massive fire blast rip, screaming for round 2 as the flames literally slam into the side of the building, sending Nino into a total panic as he yells at her to stop before she burns the whole place down. Ute quickly steps in and shuts everything down fast, telling Mia she is getting kicked out if she pulls that again, leaving her groveling while villagers wonder how she got so strong. Trust me, you will want to see what happens next. Nino confidently steps up to explain. Let's dive in. Nino tells the crowd, Mia's insane power boost is all from his transmutation, leaving Ute totally stunned, asking if his skill is actually that ridiculously broken. Nino just gives her a simple, confident nod. He explains that with this massive power, they can finally fight off the monsters and even conquer the local labyrinth itself, making the village chief realize that if they pull this off, they will basically have unlimited resources right at their fingertips. Ali looks at the group and points out that this is not some disaster for the village. It is actually a massive opportunity, and the other villagers start talking. One guy points out that if even Mia can pull off something that crazy, it probably means every single one of them can start fighting back too. This immediately gets the younger guys thinking. This whole plan sounds like a fantastic idea. Ute is not having it though, and she yells at everyone to stop acting so foolish and just calm down for 1 second. One of the older men totally agrees, warning they should not rush into anything and really need to hear what the Lord says first. But another guy cuts him right off, arguing they should go all in because telling the Lord about this opportunity could change absolutely everything. Then someone else shouts back that the Lord will just use this as an excuse to hit all of them with even higher taxes, leading the fired-up crowd to start chanting for the village chief, begging Dirk to lead them in a fight to save their home. Now watch closely. Dirk just stands there, his expression totally serious, as the whole room falls completely silent. Nino watches him closely as the chief finally speaks up, telling everyone he is really sorry, but there is no way he can accept that proposal. Nino looks genuinely surprised as Dirk explains that he simply has to put the overall safety of everyone in the village first. Plus, they cannot afford to take the monster threat lightly. The risk is just way too high for him to even think about considering it. Staring right into the chief's eyes, Nino quickly realizes that Dirk's mind is completely made up, and he is definitely not changing it. He remembers what Ojin told him just yesterday, some tragic history about the chief that perfectly explains absolutely everything. Turns out Dirk's family was attacked by monsters in the nearby forest, where his daughter vanished and his grandchild fell into a deep coma from a sickness starting right back then. So, it is no wonder the chief is so against this. But Nino looks at his group and realizes there are just some things he cannot back down from either. So, he faces the chief and all the villagers, telling them that if that is the case, he actually has a brilliant plan. Flashing a confident smile, Nino reaches out and tells Dirk he should come with them straight into the labyrinth. The entire room completely panics, and Ali yells at Nino, asking if he is actually trying to get the chief taken out. Ali looks at the group, pointing out that with Nino's skills and Mia's success, They hold a solid case. And Mia excitedly jumps right in, saying it is actually a brilliant plan, which makes Yude furiously scream at her for taking Nino's side. I know what you are thinking. Nino stares at the chief, promising that once Dirk sees the labyrinth himself, he will finally understand everything, especially since there is something specific hidden inside that Nino really wants to show him. Staring him down with a totally serious look, Nino asks the chief for his final answer on everything. Dirk closes his eyes for a second before giving in, telling Nino he will go since he is being so incredibly persistent. The group heads out to the overgrown entrance of the labyrinth, ready to see the real truth. Suddenly, Dirk finds himself holding a bone spear made from skeleton dog parts, leaving him standing there completely freaked out, asking if he is actually supposed to fight. But Nino casually shrugs it off. While Mia jokes that he looks absolutely great, Dirk tries to complain about the crazy situation, but Mia just ignores his whining and changes the subject as they head right inside. Nino looks over at Hans and asks why he decided to tag along too, but Hans just scratches his head, getting surprisingly intense as he explains that the glowing stone was basically calling out to him, and he just could not pass up the chance to stick by Nino's side during this exploration. Mia points out how he totally forced his way into the trip, while Nino just sighs, figuring that extreme stubbornness clearly runs in the family. The mood shifts super fast when a pack of ghostly floating monsters appears out of nowhere. Nino does not waste a single second, immediately calling out for Paula to handle things. So, she cracks her whip and lets her massive monster friend tear right through the center of the pack. Then Nino shouts that it is the chief's turn to step up, and even though Dirk looks incredibly nervous, he lunges forward and drives that bone spear straight through one of the ghosts with the super heavy strike. Nino gives him a quick thumbs up for the solid spear work, leaving the chief standing there absolutely stunned by what he just pulled off. Mia happily cheers about how easy the slimes are now, while Paula just giggles, but Dirk stands there staring at his spear, completely wondering how they won so fast. Trust me on this. Nino watches them, realizing how much everyone has leveled up since their last trip out here. Alright, you and I are about to watch these rookies fight. So much easier, protected by the team's absolute strongest members. Nino knows this is the perfect way to prove to the chief that these dungeon beasts can actually be defeated. Mia glances around the pitch-black hallways, feeling pretty nervous that more creatures are suddenly popping up. Nino casually explains they just respawned over time, making Mia complain loudly about all their wasted effort. But Nino realizes this entire dungeon works exactly like his old video games, so he tells everyone to gear up and push forward. The squad turns a corner and immediately finds a giant glowing slime monster completely blocking their only path. They somehow push right through it, and Hans admits that although Florida started rough, they definitely crushed it in the end. He laughs out loud, bragging to everyone that this whole adventuring gig becomes super easy once you finally get the hang of it. Paula just looks back and forth between Hans and Dirk, wondering if Dirk is truly his uncle. Nino watches the two of them quietly, thinking to himself that they actually share a similar vibe. Hans is way too hyped about the epic loot to even notice. He holds a massive pile, amazed these monsters dropped so many rare crafting materials and high-value magic stones. He shouts at Dirk that leaving this gold mine is crazy, but the village chief still looks incredibly unsure about this entire situation. Dirk remains completely silent for a second, just staring blankly until Nino speaks up to break the tension. Nino straight up asks him for his honest thoughts on this labyrinth, now that they have partially cleared it, while Dirk just stands there with a super serious look on his face. Watch closely here. Dirk mutters the question, staring into the distance while you and I wait for him to finally make a decision. He heavily sighs and looks down. He tells the crew that, honestly speaking, the actual danger from these dungeon creatures wasn't nearly as terrifying as he originally thought it would be. Hans gets super hyped, assuming this means they are staying, but Dirk quickly cuts him off, saying, that is not everything. He admits those rare materials are a massive bonus, but he still worries about keeping a den of mysterious beasts so close to their home. Dirk looks away, admitting this dungeon simply does not seem worth the huge risk of intentionally exploring it. He is primarily prioritizing the village's safety, but Nino jumps in, saying, that is true. He has a very special spot to show everyone. That might completely change their minds. The squad follows him up to a high ridge overlooking an absolutely massive open valley hidden way Deep underground. Hans is completely speechless, and Dirk cannot believe a space this enormous actually exists. Beneath the surface, Nino just smiles brightly, explaining to his friends that this is a secret zone they randomly discovered recently. He proudly tells Dirk that this land belongs to absolutely nobody, making it essentially just free open territory. Dirk whispers the words free land, desperately trying to process the idea, while Nino just nods to confirm. Then he turns right to the chief, asking for his honest thoughts on this massive area. He wants to know how this terrain looks from a true leader's experienced perspective. Dirk grabs a handful of dirt, carefully inspecting it while letting out an impressed gasp at the rich texture. He stays kneeling down on the ground, confidently telling everyone that the soil here is actually super high quality. Nino watches him super closely, secretly thinking to himself that this is exactly the reaction he wanted. The chief explains the dirt is neither too heavy nor too light. It literally looks like it would drain perfectly. He starts explaining that amazing soil like this could create something massive. But Nino quickly interrupts to grab his full attention back again. Nino looks Dirk right in the eye. Now you and I better pay close attention, because the crazy plan he drops next catches every single person totally off guard. Hans is visibly shaking, and Dirk loudly yells out, asking if he actually means the entire village. Nino just stares forward with utter seriousness. He confidently confirms they will build farm fields, crafting workshops, and literal houses. The whole village works right here in this hidden valley. He wraps up by declaring that this grand plan is easily the smartest way to give the chief exactly what his people truly need. Nino keeps pitching genius ideas, mentioning they could easily set up a massive magical herb garden right here. The chief takes a long second to process everything. He finally sees the epic vision, respectfully calling him Nino-sama. Dirk gazes out across the vast underground mountain range, declaring this whole place is basically an endless mountain of treasure. Later that evening, the entire village gathers outside the local tavern. The mood feels incredibly heavy as everyone waits for the big news. Dirk stands confidently before the anxious crowd, telling everyone he ventured deep into the labyrinth yesterday with Nino to properly check things out. The nervous villagers listen closely as their chief explains that, based on his underground discoveries, he has made a massive new decision. He drops an absolute bombshell on them, proudly announcing his decision to hide this incredible discovery from the local lord completely. Everyone absolutely loses their minds. One villager in the crowd suddenly realizes that keeping this a secret means they are going completely rogue. Dirk admits the monster threat exists, but trust me, you and I know the value of that labyrinth is just too epic to ignore. Stick with me here. The chief announces that to actually grow, they are all following Nino's lead from now on. The crowd goes absolutely wild. The horn guy starts screaming that their moment is finally happening. Everyone is cheering loudly. They finally realize they don't have to abandon their beloved home anymore. Hans is right in the center of the madness, shouting that this epic energy has him completely fired up. The amazing energy spreads quickly. One guy vows to fight, while another proudly screams he will protect their home. Wanting to keep the amazing party going, one guy suggests a toast with some labyrinth water. Eugene worries about running out of the good stuff, but the girls simply laugh, boldly declaring they can easily fetch more. The entire group is fully hyped, loudly daring any monsters out there to bring it on. What an incredible turnaround, right? Everyone is pumping their fists and roaring together, leaving Dirk standing there in awe. He tells Nino he's never seen the villagers look so full of life, looking at the brilliant teen who changed everything. The chief quietly calls him Nino-sama with deep respect. Dirk looks at Nino with absolute hope, asking him one more time to please protect their village. Nino flashes a confident smile, assuring the chief he has got this covered. Now, the team gathers to talk business. Someone starts by saying they must plan for the village's future. Pointing at the table maps, Dirk admits they still have a massive mountain of work ahead of them. They need to secure a reliable food supply, bring in some steady income, and start brewing medicine to keep everyone healthy. But honestly, Dirk says, the biggest priority is their water situation. Just hauling water from the labyrinth daily simply will not be enough to sustain the entire village's growing needs. Nino does not even look stressed. He calmly tells Dirk he already fixed their water source. Now pay attention here. Before Nino can explain, panicked guy bursts inside, screaming for the chief, because something wild is happening. Totally out of breath, The guy yells that they must reach the village square right now. Boom! A massive pillar of water suddenly erupts from the ground right mid-village, catching literally everyone by complete surprise. Dirk completely loses his mind, screaming about where this water came from, while Paula simply stands there proudly smirking, pointing to the giant toothy worm monster behind her. She explains that Meekin actually brought this glorious water up for them. Dirk cannot even process this, begging her to repeat that. But a villager interrupts, urging the chief to hear how it happened. Apparently, that massive worm Paula controls just started fiercely digging into the earth. It flung dirt everywhere, tunneling deep without stopping for a single second until it struck a hidden underground water vein. Dirk stands there in complete shock as a guy blasts the monster straight into the air. "You are going to love this." Paula laughs, telling the group there is still more to see. She sends some little slime creatures flying toward the fountain, and the crowd completely loses it because the muddy water magically turns crystal clear right before their eyes.